Okay, so I'm back from America, barely. As you can hear, I sound like I'm fucking dying. I apologize to everyone, for the entirety of this episode, because I'm going to sound like shit. I have bronchitis, guys. I'm so sorry. Arcos thinks it's a medieval disease and I'm making it up, but I got back from America about 10 days ago and I clearly caught something on the plane because I got sick straight away. I've been in bed for 10 days, but I've pulled myself off my deathbed to do this podcast because not because I have to, not because I need the money, but because I fucking want to talk about WoW with you guys. A lot has happened that I'm busting to talk about, and I've been waiting for a day where I could at least, somewhat speak to be able to do this. And here I am doing it tough, playing through injury for you guys. I love you all, and I'll tell you a story about how much I love you all very soon. Let's introduce some of the guests. Zim, mate, welcome back. Is it you, Zim, that's been running around in OSRS?
No, it's not.
No, that was Galley Boy. Sorry, that was Galley Boy who's left us for It's like being left, like a partner has left you for another game, and he's running around, fucking around with OSRS, and he's like, "Screw all you WoW Classic guys. I'll come back when you get a better job or something like that." But Zim, you've never given up the dream. You're still sodding away. Is that right?
Yeah, still sodding away. Just actually leveled up 2 more alts.
Ooh.
Just keeping at it.
Baby, you're going to blow your wad too soon before these undead pallies hit us.
Oh, I know. I'm just going to have to do it again. I've kind of abandoned my druid. I'm like, oh, well, need the space.
What did you level up that you didn't have already?
Feral druid, and then I just got a warrior to 60 and started dicking around with it.
Oh, you cracked. You gave in to Browntown with Arcos.
Sure did. I figured I'd give it a go.
Fair enough. All right, we've also got Iconoclastic here, mate. Welcome back.
Hey, what's good? Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday/Sunday. It's very good to have you here. And as always, I'm very, very happy this person joined us. I did DM him. I was shocked to see when I DM'd you that I had never sent you a DM before. And now I feel like a fucking prick. DC Green, how are you?
Oh, hey. Good. Always happy to be in demand. So yeah, no worries for that.
I couldn't believe I couldn't believe that at the very least you hadn't sent me a threatening DM or something of that nature.
I always hit the character limit, and then Discord sends me emails about the content of it as well. So it never goes through.
Yeah. Would you like to send this as a text file? No, I'm okay. I couldn't be fucked anymore. Very good. I'm not sure if Arcos is back yet, so we'll move on to...
Yeah.
Oh, wait, he's here. All right, we'll do our last guest, lucky last. Arcos, mate, you're on the beers. You're keen to chat. Can you pronounce the Icelandic beer one more time that you are consuming right now for us?
Good.
Of course.
That's the name.
Grab a good.
Of course. It's simple, easy name.
Yeah. No,
for all of you out there. It's not a great beer. It's kind of piss, but it's the only one the hotel reception across the street had to sell to me.
Whoa. You rolling in your Art Vandelay money through your importing-exporting business and you're drinking swill?
Yeah, because, okay.
In this economy?
We have a state monopoly, right, on retail sale of alcohol. And I forgot to go to the store before it closes down because it closes at 6. Some stores close at 7 or something. So I had to run to the hotel next door and buy it from the reception there. And I think I paid $15 for one can of 330ml.
Right.
Still bought a few, but
did you buy the can that the attendant at the hotel was already drinking? You're like, please, just let me buy that one off you.
I would have paid more for their spit probably, but
Jesus.
There is some markup on that.
Very good. All right, and last but not least, we've got Girthman, who I hadn't met prior to this morning, who is a long-time listener, first-time caller, which is something that is very common on the show that you guys know is my greatest love to meet. I sound terrible. I'm so sorry, guys. My greatest love to meet listeners like this. Girthman, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm actually kind of buddies with Tim, and he encouraged me to come here. So,
Oh,
Yep.
good man. So you can tell us how much of a piece of shit Zim really is.
Zim is a noble and blessed sweetheart.
Who's
He's just saying that 'cause I'm the main tank of the guild.
whose personal hygiene is beyond reproach.
A little bit A, a little bit of B.
Yeah. So are you guys long-time guildies or something?
No, actually, just phase 6, phase 7.
Oh, I see. So you're in the honeymoon phase of knowing each other in WoW. How fun.
It's been a treat. I'm enjoying it.
Very good.
I treat him good.
Well,
He does.
it's funny because Girthman, you said that you've been listening to the show for years, so you must have heard Zim for a long time before bumping into him.
It's funny. I never made the connection until like 2 weeks ago when I was listening. I was like, "Is that my main tank?"
How good. Excellent. Well, look, I mentioned before I started recording, Girthman, that you're a great example of a story I wanted to very, very quickly tell because, like I said, I just got back from 2 weeks in the US. It was my first time back to the United States in 5 years since BlizzCon 2019. And it's funny because, just bear with me for a few minutes as I tell what is hopefully a somewhat enjoyable and amusing story, everyone. But before I went, I said to Patricia, my wife, I was like, hey, do you reckon I should meet up with some listeners while I go like over there? And she's like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, starting to get a bit uneasy about you meeting randoms and, the internet's a crazy place and WoW's a crazy game. And, it just takes one fucking person to not like what you said about Ret Paladins to fucking stab you in the neck and it's all over. And I was like, yeah, you've got a point. But
It does sound like a red paladin.
It does. It does sound like a
Very
red
true.
paladin. Yeah. So I said to her, yeah, you've got a point. And she swayed me over to not meeting up with anyone for about 3 seconds. And then I was like, fuck it. I'm an idiot. I love meeting fans. Let's go do this. So you guys saw I put the Discord message out there at everyone. Look, guys, if you live in fucking New York, Austin, or Las Vegas, let me know because I'd love to have a beer with you. Thankfully, about 4 people hit me up and said, yeah, fuck it, Josh, let's have a beer. And I'm so glad that they did because it was a really humbling experience for me to meet these guys who were so great. Met up with a few guys in New York and one in Austin, none in Vegas. I guess there's no fucking Countdown fans in Vegas or no time to play WoW in Vegas. You got other things to do. But like everyone was... It's so lame just to say they were nice because they were very nice. But more importantly, like every one of these dudes that I had a beer with, and hello to all of you listening, by the way, you few guys that I did meet up with. It's lovely to speak to you again. It's one of those things where you really realize that your content, I've said this for years, which is why I'm also quite critical of some content creators, but like your content will naturally attract, like a moth to a flame, people like you. Whether you decide to be yourself or a, quote unquote persona, which I fucking hate on your content, you will pick up people that are like that. What you project, people will say, hey, that sounds like me, or that looks like me, and they will naturally gravitate towards it. And it's funny because I'm a cunt, so you'd think I would just meet up with all these cunts. But they were the loveliest guys, and I was having a beer with these guys, and they were buying me beers and being so nice. I'm trying to buy them beers, and they're like, fuck off. You've given me so much free content over the years. Please let me at least buy you a beer. And then I cheekily abused the situation by bringing my nephew along, and then they had to buy him a beer as well. And they were like, oh, well, this isn't part of the fucking deal. No, they were so lovely about it. And what I'm getting at is it was really like just having a beer with the mates I would have back home with someone like me who no one was a fuckwit. They were really easy to talk to. It wasn't like these guys weren't weird WoW nerds, if that makes sense, where everyone was just a fucking regular dude. One of them was a fucking, I don't want to dox anyone, but I won't give details away. But every single one of them was just you know, much like you guys on this call might call yourselves, a fucking regular dude, you know, gives off the image of the, you know, relationship, marriage, picket fences, kids, got a job, been working for years, you know, just happened to play WoW as well, as opposed to what we see. So what I, you know, presume is the case so often when I read a lot of these forum replies, where you read a lot from people that you just presume there is nothing else in their lives outside of WoW. And it's WoW in the number one slot and not much else going on after that. All of my listeners are the inverse of that. You guys, I love you so much because you go out and you do things like, oh, I play rugby on the weekend, or I go out and I'm, you know, I go antiquing with my wife on the weekends, and then I happen to play WoW around that or whatever. Like, I love that we're all just fucking well-to-do, fun, you know, good people that just treat this as a hobby as opposed to the only thing that fucking there is in life. Because I think when you start to treat WoW like that's all there is, that's when you start to fall into the pitfalls. But anyway, having heard me say that, Girthman, sorry to give you the sort of long, elaborate introduction. I mean, does that sound like I've just described you, Girthman, or are you going to say, no, Josh, WoW is all there is, you're wrong about me?
Definitely sounds in line with a lot of people I know and work with, play with, etc.
There you go. That's good. Arcos, did I describe you, or are you like, mate, please, the guild needs me to do nothing but play WoW?
It's that one.
I'm really sorry. I didn't listen to anything you just
Oh my God, you piece of shit.
Arcos. He basically asked if you're sweaty or not.
said. Yeah. I need to shower twice a day, otherwise the communal staircase.
Yeah.
Smells.
Fred, you heard all of that. Welcome back to the show, Fred. Do you think I described you? Are you a life number one and then WoW number two kind of guy?
I definitely hope so, considering I mostly raid log. So if if WoW is all there is to life and I'm just raid logging, then Jesus Christ.
Exactly. Anyway, what I'm getting at, guys, is I just want to throw some love back to you as a listener base and just say, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'm not just saying it to piss in your pocket. It was a really sort of eye-opening trip for me to meet just a handful of people that I felt were quite representative of this listener base, and it had been a while since I've met some fans, and you guys are the best. You are the best. Like, you're really cool, fun people. I always say, I don't like to hang out with people I wouldn't have a beer with. You know, the kind of guy you can just go to the fucking pub with, grab a beer, and it's easy and it's fun. I don't want to spend time with people who fucking are dickheads, who are lame, who are awkward. And like, there are WoW players like that out there that you go to the pub with and they can't say a fucking word. And you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? Thankfully, I just don't feel like there's many of them amongst my listener base. You guys are awesome. I love you, and keep on keeping on is what I'm getting at. Let's get to the crux of the matter, though, now that I'm done sort of tongue bathing you all.
Glazing.
Exactly, as the kids say, glazing you all. Thank you, DC Green. Look, guys, let's get into some fucking WoW. Fred's here, DC Green is here, Arcos is here. Everyone is pumped up and ready to go. Let's start with SoD. Let's start with PTR. I want to talk about all this exciting shit that people are now discovering, and ripping screenshots of for the subreddit to see. We've got things like Undead Pallies. We've got things like Hyjal. It's all fucking happening. DC Green, I'm going to let you kick us off, mate. Tell me what you've seen from these PTR tidbits that you are most excited about. Pick the first talking point.
What's definitely got to be the item design, and it definitely isn't the tier set appearances if those are locked in, especially for leatherwares. But yeah, I think that Blizzard is showing like a lot of evolution with like their item design. It's another raid tier where there's like brand new stats on all the gear, and especially like a lot of the gear looks like it has like really cool on use abilities and things that are gonna kind of give you extra stuff to do in your rotation that are based around the items that you're wearing, and not just like from the bonuses that they give you from like tier, but like actual like green text on the items. And some of these are more contentious than others. I'm going to give a contentious example right now because it's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, because ferals are like dooming about it. But for example, there's like a new staff in the game that makes it, if you stay in cat form for 5 seconds, you get 100% increased energy regeneration and 100% increased damage on ferocious bite. So this is essentially killing power shifting. So like a lot of druids are not like very happy about it, but the point is that like Blizzard is doing like a lot of interesting stuff with kind of their item design as far as like what we can see. And the exciting part about that also is that there's a lot of items that don't even have stats on them yet. They're just like, you know, templates. Like it's just a chess piece with a name and like it says sanctified on it. It has no stats and no green text or anything like that. So there could still be like a plethora of items that are going to come down the pipeline in the next couple of weeks that we're going to see that are really going to get the wheels turning in people's heads about what is BIS and like how it's going to change the way the classes play and interact with each other and things of that nature. Oh, another really cool one, by the way, is a ranged weapon. And it says on it, when you engage combat by shooting this weapon, it gives you, I think it gives like 20% defense and like 10% attack speed for 15 seconds. So it's basically like a tank weapon that you use to like engage combat that gives you like a little bit of more of the stats that you want to like establish threat and kind of get up and running so like your DPSers can just start pumping. So I think that you know, they're showing some really good creativity here and kind of like flexing their design space into some areas that they haven't gone before. So that's like the thing that I think has been kind of like the highlight of what's been coming out of the PTR.
He's being on his best behavior now because he's seen a Grend in the crowd. I see how it is. You wilt away under the fucking heavy spotlight, DC Green.
Oh, I didn't know he was here, but hello, Grend.
Hey, it's so funny. I know you're a sweat lord when I say, look at all this cool, shiny shit that the casuals like me like, undead paladins and fucking Hyjal. And you're like, no, Joshua, I want to talk about itemization.
Well, I think that Pallies and Shamans are for opposite factions is cope. So I don't really want to indulge that too much. But the Hyjal stuff, I think there's something there. I don't know if we're gonna get like another phase of it. After seeing the screenshot of the big ooze in Hyjal, and I read some of the stuff about what you need to do to like clean the Ashbringer. There, I think it says something about cleaning the Ashbringer in like the Well of Eternity. So my speculation is that big ooze is gonna be some kind of like raid boss that you have to fight in order to like clean the Ashbringer. It's probably some like congealed like Well of Eternity goo over the centuries or whatever, and it's like corrupted and stuff, and you got to kill it and like purify it, and then you can purify the Ashbringer. That's my current like working theory on what it is. But if we get a Hyjal phase after this, you know, I'm not going to complain. That's like been one of the big Hyjal's been a drum I've been banging since SoD's come out. So
all right,
give us something like that, I will be very happy.
Well, here's something I want to bang that you've just raised, and it's one of a few talking points that you brought up there in that opening stanza, and I want to get you real quick to answer it, and then I want everyone else to jump in on this one. It's fun to talk about. We'll come back to itemization in a second, but
sure.
It's interesting to hear you say, because I've thought about it as well, because we kind of just, you know, being nerds, we talk about this like it's a given the screenshots, but, you know, you're saying it's cope to think that we are actually getting undead pallies and that the Alliance would get Shaman at all in SoD and blah, blah, blah. It might just be a fun little tease and a bit of a, a wink, but not actually happening from Blizzard. Tell me why, so for everyone I should do the move where if you're listening and you've got no idea what the fuck we're talking about, a screenshot's going out. I mean, jump on the PTR right now and you can go straight to Tirisfal Glades, the undead starting zone, and see there is a brand new NPC right there as you come out of the crypts on the left-hand side as you're walking out, called Truthbearer. And it's an undead paladin. And, you know, you talk to him and he's just got one little speech box that says, yada, 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 I miss my friends, life is so new and scary now. And he drops a thing at the end saying, you know, but something along the lines of maybe some of my former friends will find their way back to the light. Hence dropping the illusion that maybe undead paladins will become a thing. The player base is titillated by the concept. I am titillated by the concept. I know I would level a fucking undead paladin straight away. It's something I've always wanted to do. It's not something that's ever been available in World of Warcraft in any version of the game, as far as I know. Please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I jumped onto retail and said, I'm pretty sure you still can't create an undead paladin, and I couldn't. So there you go. Tell me why you think this is all just a big tease, DC Green, and then I want to hear from everyone else whether they think it's coming or not.
Okay. Okay, so first I want to say that like I know that I'm known as a cynic, but I don't want people to get that confused with like disdain. Like just because I say like something is cope doesn't mean that like I'm against it or I hate it or would dislike it. If they put shamans and paladins on like the opposite factions, I wouldn't have a problem with it, and it would actually go like a long way to relieving a lot of, issues that are experienced in the raiding scene and stuff like that with like class compositions and like like Alliance having like a really difficult time dealing with poisons and stuff because of shamans having poison totem stuff. So I don't have anything against it. I just think that based on the fact that SoD seems to be some kind of fork of like original classic realms, we've seen them like introduce Might of Stormwind and then that gets into classic, or when the BGs got crossed over and stuff like that. So I think that they have like some limitations that makes this like not very feasible. I also think that like we're such a long way down the pipeline of SoD that it seems weird that they would do this now. Now, now's as good a time as any, I guess you could say. It just seems like we've kind of committed to this version of the game where the factions are unique, and that also seems to be like, we toe this line all the time with SoD about like, well, what is classic, what do we keep in classic, and like what do we change and stuff like that. And a hallmark of classic does seem to be that the factions have these unique classes to them, and that we just kind of take those imbalances that they provide on the chin as these like really unique and kind of like flavorful things, rather than being like holistic tenets of like bad game design because of imbalance. So that's kind of just where my perspective comes from. It just seems like we're so far down the pipeline. There's these technical limitations and stuff that they have. So I wouldn't waste any effort like getting my hopes up, and then that puts me in the better position of just being pleasantly surprised if it does ever happen. So that's just kind of how I personally look at it.
I will get everyone else involved. One last thing on that. What if, DC Green, this were the one of several minor indicators at this stage that, and Blizzard, they themselves verbally have hinted at this themselves. What if this is the sign that SoD actually has a far longer life cycle to come than you seem to think?
Well, I think we're already living that reality. I think that the fact that they've extended it by an entire phase to really give the Scarlet Crusade raid and new, it looks like there's like a new hub zone and stuff. It looks like they're really going like balls out on giving us like a proper like content drop phase with new Avalon and stuff like that. And so I would say with SoD right now, like anything is on the table. Like the some of the correspondence that I've seen from Blizzard recently makes me feel like they're deciding to capitalize more on the opportunities that SoD is bringing them. So I don't know if something has happened internally where they've seen that it's like a bigger hit than they thought, or what have you. But like I'm a SoD enjoyer, so anything that we get that extends it, like I'm all for. So if we get undead paladins and dwarf shamans and we get Hydraul and we get like that, yeah, I have no complaints that like I'll be there cheerleading it on. So I hope that happens. I think I typed like, and we like hopefully we can get into this a little bit more like elaborately later, but like I think that at this point they should just drop the pretense and rebrand SoD as Classic Plus. Like I don't know why, I don't even know what the benefits would be of like discontinuing any development on SoD, putting it off for 2 years, like releasing like a whole new game when you're giving like 2 years to your competitors to release other MMOs or to design completely brand new video game experiences that are going to detract from like the people that might play it. I think just seize the opportunity that you have now and just go full forward with it, but we'll see.
All right, we're going to go around the table now. You've all been very polite in letting DC Green get a great opening shot out there. First in, best dressed, he who yells loudest gets in. Is this undead paladin thing a great what's the word I'm looking for, guys? Is this just bait or is it legit?
I'd say it's legit. Because even during BlizzCon, or when they put out the roadmap for all the different versions of the game, right? They hinted at having, Nax plus additional endgame content. So that phasing, I believe, was already set and part of their planning from the get-go. What was in that phase, I think, developed over time as they started looking into, the Scarlet Crusade, the Enclave and stuff like that. I thought, I think it is would be a solid addition. I mean, with all the crazy stuff they've done in Season of Discovery, why not? I think it's a good opportunity for them to, try something new. There's never been undead paladins. I believe there is dwarf shamans in retail. But I think it'll be neat. And I think undead paladins goes along with the storyline and the arc of the Scarlet Crusade anyways.
Fred, I'll throw it to you next, but then I'll say I agree with you, Zim, in terms of we've already seen all this crazy shit in SoD. It's certainly on brand to do it. And like in the whole, like we've literally never seen an undead paladin. If there ever was a time to do it and have fun and fuck around, it is Season of Discovery. So like I would personally bet that it's coming, but I mean, fuck, what do I know? Fred, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Zim makes a good point too of tying into the Scarlet Crusade, which is that, it seems like they're going to add like paladin-specific flavor. It's like, okay, well, they don't want that to just only be enjoyed by the Alliance. It doesn't really make sense to add shaman-specific flavor when the entire, expansion or phase is about the Scarlet Crusade. So, we'll add the paladins to a horde as well, and they get to enjoy it as well. And, now that they've had the Rune Broker added, the lift of adding horde paladins and Alliance shamans is so much lower because you don't need to add all these new quests for every single rune for 100 runes, whatever. You just go to the Rune Broker, get your runes. It's totally fine. And then finally, I mean, it's hard for me to say that, oh yeah, Blizzard went through all the effort of looking up this Warcraft 3 hero, Sage Truthbearer, from one mission and Warcraft 3 who dies. And then they looked into the game files and found that Sage Truthbearer's first name is Gregory. Okay, and then they added that character right outside the crypts and the startings of the undead to just make an obscure comment about maybe there being undead paladins. Like, really? It's strange credulity to think they went through all that effort for them not to add it, just as like this bait. Like, it's crazy to me.
I agree. So, sorry,
so that's my thought on it.
The word I was looking for before, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, I believe was MacGuffin. It would be an odd MacGuffin to throw in there. A lot of effort for nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm with Zim, and I think it's there. And real quick, just to change topic, real quick back to itemization. DC Green was talking about all the crazy items and they added new things. I'm surprised he didn't talk about Infusion of Souls, which is maybe the craziest one, which is your global cooldown for spells or for non-weapon based damaging spells is reduced by 0.5 seconds. So instead of having 1.5 GCD, you have a 1 second GCD. So that could significantly change like the rotations and how like every caster plays. So we're talking about like one single item that changes everything about how the game plays. It's that item. Anyway, sorry, just wanted to throw that in.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'm a rogue, so that isn't a good item for a rogue. And I was also struggling to come up with examples. But yeah, that is a crazy item. Like it's really interesting to see them like exploring these really unique design spaces that we've never seen before and trying to unlock player power through, something you'd never think of, like shortening my GCD by half a second. It's like, that's not something you'd think would be on an item, but like now here it is. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
All right, Girthman, let's throw you in the mix and then we'll get to Icono and Arcos. Mates, we're making everyone pick here. It's kind of like we're in Vegas and you got to bet on red or black. What are you putting the house on? Undead Paladins, are they going to be a thing or not?
I mean, when it was first announced, I definitely thought it was Cope. But as time has gone on and the more stuff has been announced, a lot of the Scarlet Monastery raid stuff towards the end seems like demon based, so it might be a lead up towards some kind of TBC based assets. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen, but there's a Bulwark of Azeroth with Scarlet
colors,
Scarlet themes and stuff like that. So, they're definitely reusing some assets, and I kind of realized that it kind of sets the pretense of just like Zim and them were saying, is like the future is a lot more there's a lot more experimenting to be done with them adding undead paladins, things that weren't in the game originally, like tank shamans or healing mages. They're definitely it's a good time to experiment.
Yeah, much like Arcos in University, experimentation is high on the agenda. Arcos, what say you? Undead paladins, yay or nay?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I have no issue. I would kind of say that. Don't want to be too much of a negative Nancy. It feels understandable if they were to introduce them now. Like there's not a lot left of the expansion. There's not that many people playing it compared to before, so there's probably less people going to dislike it or see something something bad about it, right? But it also, if SoD just ends with the next content patch, it also feels like maybe for some people who will play it, I wish I got this earlier, right? I wish I could have this much fun earlier as well. So it also kind of hints at maybe this isn't the end. Coupled with Agrant saying in his random YouTube comment somewhere that there are many months left of Season of Discovery.
Yes, we'll get to a Gren's random YouTube comment soon as well. Icono, we'll get you. Icono, we'll get you to round this one out, mate. Yay or nay on the Undead Paladins, and I'll give my final thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of personal involvement with SoD lately, other than selling stuff on the auction house since the AQ release was experienced by my raid group. But I'd say now is the time to be taking those risks with big changes, swing for the fences. At this point in the game's life cycle, a lot of people like me who would have been scared away by changes or had reasons to stop playing, I feel like the people still with it are here for the long haul and they want to see big sweeping changes.
I'll say this much on it in terms of what a few of you have mentioned. Look, you kind of have to look at it holistically in terms of what does, are we getting it, but also what does it mean for the game in the grand scheme of things. As soon as I heard about BlizzCon in 2026, that was sort of a real eyebrow raiser for me because it so many of you commented, the first thing that I thought when I saw the news as well, where I was like, why the fuck are they telling us? Why are they doing it in 2026 and why are they telling us now? A year and a half removed from the event. It all seemed a bit odd, but anyway, it's their call to make and that's what they've gone with. BlizzCon needs things to announce. It's literally, as much as the event, it is billed as the fan-friendly event, and this is where tens of thousands of Blizzard fans get together to celebrate the intellectual property sort of, in person and have a drink together and talk about their love of the game. It is, really first and foremost the greatest marketing platform for the company. It's what they use to launch products. It's how you get the greatest breadth of word out there about what you're doing next. And you don't announce a BlizzCon unless you've got some heavy hitting thing, whilst there has been a couple of whiffs in the past of, seemingly limp dick announcements, they've still got announcements. They're generally saying, hey, here's our next, expansion or sequel or new IP. And they need multiple of them. You can't just go, here's one game and we're going to have a fucking whole BlizzCon surrounding it. My mind started racing about what the September 26th date meant for Classic. And I'm like, oh man, I had all my chips on the table for SoD ending around the end of summer of this year. And then just presuming, and like I said, I've double, triple, quadruple down with no inside information whatsoever, and the devs, if Grand is still sitting here listening to this, he can chuckle about this at home because he knows, like, I don't get told shit. And I'd hate that I have to keep saying it out loud. I have fucking zero inside info. But as a somewhat quasi thinking man, I've been like, Classic Plus is a foregone conclusion. The devs, even if the devs weren't sort of doing the winku out loud as they've been doing, I still put all my chips on the table towards Classic Plus absolutely being the next thing that's coming. The question is when, not if. So I was all in on, yeah, fuck it, you know, June, July, August 25 Classic Plus. That will have given SoD a year and a half, and then we move on to the next thing. But the BlizzCon announcement kind of shook the foundations of that belief of mine. And now I'm truly wondering if the BlizzCon date, combined with other little tidbits of information that we've gotten, like this undead paladin thing, really has started paving the road to a September 26 launch for Classic Plus as opposed to September 25. The guys, you know, the devs have said, we are working on something huge. The next big and like that's not a revelation to anyone. Like, oh wow, newsflash, game developers are working on their next game. Fucking stop the presses, right? We know they're working on something big. We know that you could have said there's a season or whatever coming after this one. Season of Discovery was successful. What happens when you get a successful IP or game or whatever? You greenlight a sequel. I talked about this before on the show months ago, joking about how quickly was the sequel to SoD greenlit after its initial Phase 1 success. Talked about all the fucking, C-suite fucking just slapping everyone on the Classic team on the back going, wow, what great success off such little investment. Good job, you little Classic team. Of course there's something big coming next. But my dream of having that happen this year is now slightly dashed because I think they really are tipping their hat to, look, guys, two things can be true at the same time. Number one, SoD is good and a lot of you are enjoying it. And number two, we need more time to make the next big thing. We just need more time. We need more and more time because we're getting more and more involved in the development of it and we think it's going to be the next big thing. So how do you buy more time? Fuck it. Let's shake things up. Give the Alliance fucking Shaman. Give the Horde undead paladins. And whilst there is the argument that could just be a little bit of fun for a few months, throw it in, the game's about to end, who cares? I would lean more towards the opposite of, like, if anything, it's an indicator of an extension where they're like, hey, if you're going to take the time to, even though it doesn't take that much time in SoD, I get that, to level up an undead paladin from scratch, we're going to let you fucking play it for some, long protracted period of time. The introduction of the Scarlet Crusade raid, the hint at Hyjal, I just think while the SoD train continues to steam down the tracks, why not continue to build phase after phase? And basically, I presume they're simultaneously working on SoD and Classic Plus at the same time now, buying time for a good Classic Plus release later down the track. Having heard that very long rant, how do you guys feel about my very tentative shifting of that release window of Classic Plus?
I think it's crazy you thought it was going to come out this year.
Yeah, probably.
I would have put like 2 years after SoD at minimum. And like SoD done and dusted, like no more. They've told us like we're turning the lights off, we're moving your character somewhere else, etc., etc.
That was just that was copium on my behalf. And to be fair, I had nothing to base it off because Som ended and there was a long period of time in between Som and SoD that I eviscerated Blizzard for. I was like, we've got nothing to play. If you're not, if you're not an era enthusiast, if you're not into Wrath, there's just not much going on for Classic fans now. And they went, I can't even remember how long it was. Was it a year between Som and SoD? But I was really critical of Blizzard.
I think it was a lot more than that.
Yeah, I was really critical of the team for that, downtime, if you will, between seasons. So it's copium on my behalf to go, oh, you know, they'll do a year and a half of SOD and then go straight into the next thing because they've learnt their lesson about downtime between seasons. But they've kind of smartly, seemingly clapped back and gone, well, how about we counter offer with it'll still be technically a long time between season launches in that, you know, SOD launched in November of 23 and we're going to launch Classic Plus in September of 26. So that's, you know, quite a period of time. However, how about we do you a solid by basically continuing to release content for SOD so it basically runs the whole way through rather than us leaving you high and dry for a year or more like we did. I think that's what's happening. Anyone, someone, tell me, am I crazy?
I think that there has to be something in between this next phase of SOD and BlizzCon. I agree with you there. Whether that means there's going to be like a phase, 8 or 9, whatever. They want to just continue SOD and keep it going. That's to be determined, I suppose. But yeah, they may still shut down SOD after this next phase, after a couple months, and be like, all right, well, hey, you still have, Mrs. Pandaria to look forward to, and you still got, TBC coming up. So why don't you guys hop over to those and then just kind of eliminate some of the, the game choice, I suppose. Or they could just ride out SOD and it'll end up like phase 3, where it just felt like it took forever. I don't know. I think there's a multitude of different options that could, different ways they can take this thing. And honestly, I'm kind of excited to see what the future of SOD is.
Arcos, where do you sit on this train? Is it welcome to BlizzCon 2026 here on the main stage, straight up, here's Classic Plus? Do you think that's happening?
I'm kind of 50-50. I'm not sure. Don't think there's any way that they keep Season of Discovery going until then, unless it's SOD TBC in between. There's no way they do enough content to keep SOD relevant until then, at least. But it would be a good time, I think, to announce Classic Plus, I guess.
All right.
I don't think they'd do it earlier. Like, if they are doing Classic Plus, then they're announcing it at BlizzCon, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anyway, thanks for going down the tangent of speculation there with me. Well, I'll pull it back to the Undead Paladin thing just to finish up on it. I mean, forgetting whether or not they're going to do it and whether, what the odds we think are that this happens. I mean, I'm presuming there's people here that really want to play one. I mean, I'm fucking busting to play an Undead Paladin. Is anyone hyped about this and wants to do it? No?
I mean,
Wants to do what? Sorry?
Play an Undead Paladin.
Undead Paladin just to check it out.
I think if we get summons, we probably have like 35 of them leveling in the guild on day 1.
Getting boosted.
Getting boosted. Yeah, getting boosted. No one's gonna level. Sorry.
Shamans boosting paladins.
Giving 5 arcane crystals shoved in their bag so they get attuned to Nax and getting tier 3 in 1 week. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
What about your guild, DC Green? Is the same thing, the wave of shaman, if it happens?
Yeah, everyone speculated that like if they did come out, they would all get leveled to 60 instantly, and they would all be in like all the because like there's a million pug raids and stuff going all the time. So like once you get getting your character to 60 is like literally the barrier, right? Once you get it to 60, it's like gear at 60 is kind of free. Like there's so many avenues in SoD to get gear that it's very, very easy once you have like a fresh 60. I mean, if you got boosted, you might have a little bit of trouble like having like a pug take you in like fresh greens to like a BWL or something like that. But like, dude, I did an MC the other day and we just took 40 people and we just smashed through it. And so much loot drops in SoD that like if you joined one of those in all greens, you're definitely going to leave with at least like 1 purple, especially because of the nature of like the soft reserve system that like all the pugs use. So, you know, if you did that, it'd be pretty rewarding to just do it, and you'd have a character ready to go in like 3 weeks or like 1 week.
Let me ask the final thing on this. Just the last nerdy little question I've got. Not that it matters. It really doesn't matter. It's so inconsequential. But in thinking, if the horde, sorry, I am dying, and Skippy is right in Twitch chat to be like, is that Josh's voice or is he using AI? It does sound fucking horrible. I'm sorry. If the horde get undead paladins, now you think obviously in turn the alliance gets shaman, like we've discussed. But what race do you feel in Season of Discovery should get shaman? Because the default is everyone just goes, oh, it's going to be dwarf. Oh, it's going to be dwarf.
Dwarf.
Yeah.
My
100%.
yeah, and I'm
No.
with
No.
you. I'm with you. I just the dumb thing in my brain goes, well, where's the fun in the horde getting a never before seen class and race combination in Undead Paladin? Wouldn't you then do the fun house mirror and do the gnome shaman or something? I don't think they should do that because no one wants to be a gnome shaman, but I'm saying like one side seems much more fun than the other. If you just get dwarf shaman, it's really been there, done that.
No, I think they should do gnome shamans. Fuck them.
How many people playing Season of Discovery do you think come from retail having played a dwarf shaman?
Well, it's not even a
There's
retail
some,
thing. There's
but I don't think there's many.
TVC or Wrath players or whatever.
That's Wrath, yeah.
So, no, there's no way that you can be a dwarf shaman in Wrath.
Is it Wrath or Kata? Whenever
It's not so
No,
catchy.
Kata.
it's-
It's
Is it
Kata.
Kata?
Either way,
I'm not even
either
sure
way.
about Kata. It's probably just
Wrath was still
fucking
Drain
Legion or
Island.
something.
Okay, then
I
Kata.
played Horde,
Sorry,
whatever.
my bad. But what I'm saying is, it's not an overtly foreign concept even to classic players. The concept of the dwarven shaman. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it's just the concept that makes most sense. But
Yeah, I mean, I think that
gnomes, sure. I don't care. Like, if you
Yeah, I
care
don't
really
about
care.
it,
If you're gonna
then
do
there's
it, just
something
do it.
wrong.
Yeah.
But the
tell us you're
character
gonna do it.
fantasy.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
made sure to be nice towards the lore, right? I mean, again, just this paladin thing that's an actual existing character in Warcraft 3. Well, it turns out that, dwarf griffin riders are like a fantasy from Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3. Like, the dwarf shamans have existed in Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3. So it just makes so much sense with the lore treatment that they're giving it for them to be the dwarf shamans.
Yeah, it makes the most sense. I get it. It makes sense. It just feels slightly less fun, in my opinion. But that's okay. Guys, I want to come back, if we can. DC Green, with your permission, can we swing back to your itemization argument that you were making before?
I'll have to check with the people upstairs.
with the
but I
higher
think that
ups?
we can probably swing back around.
Okay.
that.
All right. DC Green launched into this subject earlier. Fred, you had a bit to say about it as well. Arcos, I'd love to hear from you guys. Anyone else, from the stuff that you've poured over so far through the data mining, you sweaty, disgusting, nerdy raiders, what has grabbed your interest in terms of items that DC Green either did or didn't talk about
I
so
thought
far?
of a good one again, by the way. Can
Yeah,
I
go
mention
for it. Go for it.
There's this. I think it's a staff or it's a weapon. It's a healer weapon, and it makes it so if you cast a damaging ability on a target, it will then make that target's auto attacks heal whoever it's hitting for 3% of their maximum HP. So it basically gives like healers an opportunity to use damaging abilities on the boss in fights, and then the boss starts healing the main tank. That's some crazy shit we've never seen before.
That sounds like
at least I
amazing
haven't.
pages.
Yeah, at least I haven't personally seen something like that. So I think stuff like that's what I'm saying. Like these kind of design spaces that they've like allowed themselves to step into are really, really creative and eye-opening. And this is just like it is like reminiscent of like. It's making me feel like the way I felt about like old Blizzard. I have to say, like I have been having like a lot of like back and forths in my head about like the way that I've been feeling about this company lately. It's hard, it's hard to do. You might want to mention that that's gonna be a topic later. But yeah, it's been a struggle lately because it's like, damn, dude, like where has all this been? But like it's better. It's always better late than never. And I think that like it also kind of makes sense coming at like what was seemingly broadcasted as the crescendo of season of Discovery. You know, fingers crossed it keeps going. But if this is like how they're going out with a bang.
Are you having your Gollum moment with the two DC Greens talking to each other?
Yeah.
Very good, very good. All right, guys, piggyback off of that. That item does sound very cool. Has anyone else seen anything else in the data mining that they want to talk about that excites them? Maybe
It's
not.
I
not
know I
like
haven't.
profound, but I noticed a lot of the tanks have a lot of like self-healing when it comes to either critting or certain thing. I don't know if that's either part of like mechanics that they're planning on, but something interesting I noted.
That is cool. That is cool. It seems like, I don't know, it's I don't know if it smooths out the healing for, like Arcos would tell me, have healers felt the need for assistance, that they're getting all this sort of little like passive help from items?
I think that they just want their role to be more dynamic. I think a lot of healers are bored in what the role demands of them. And
Oh,
also
they'd be
like some
real
of them are
bored now.
overshadowed.
Yeah. I mean, I think the issue is more the guilds that the healers are playing with, because they'll always overstack healers, so you don't really have anything to do. We use like anywhere from 3 to 5 healers in splits and 2 in like our main raid. So if you're 2 healing a raid with the amount of damage that we have now, you're not going to be bored. But if you're a more casual player, your raid team doesn't care if you're bored or not. They just want to kill the boss, right? So they'll overstack healers and you'll have nothing to do and you'll be super bored and you'll consider quitting or playing something different or whatever. I don't know if like some item or some proc of an item or something is going to change that. The healing kind of mentality is so like black and white, right? Like the raid is either safe and you're bored, or the raid isn't safe and you have a lot of stuff to do and you're not bored. Your average group is always going to pick the bored healer and the safe raid. I don't think there's any design that they can do to change it.
All right, Arcos, let me throw you down a tangent because I want to get you doing this. I always make the mistake of getting to the stuff that you want to talk about when you're falling asleep and tired and it's 2 hours into the podcast. So let's bring it up early for you.
I'm in a raid. So.
That's why you're fucking tuning out all the time, you piece of shit. What are you doing now? Are you leading a raid as we speak?
No, I'm just pressing buttons in the wrong sequence.
Just running a fucking
back-to-back AQ for some RTS stuffs.
Just running an off-site Black Op GDKP.
Yeah. I'm selling feet pics for gold.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, fuck. Do you want me to not throw it to you if you're busy?
No, it's fine. We're just
okay.
trust.
All right, let's see how well you can pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time, mate.
Yes, sir.
As I try my hardest not to die on stream, this will be a great VOD of me literally fucking looking like I'm about to vomit on every second on the pod. But Arcos, I want to know, before we get to Hyjal, put a pin in Hyjal, guys. Don't let me forget about that. We'll come back to it. Mr. fucking King of Raiding in SoD, world's number one. Are you still the number one guild? What's going on?
On speed, yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine to discuss the race if that's what you want to discuss, but
let's
that
yeah, because we
cucked by fucking zones.
Yeah, please tell us the whole story. Get all your fucking vitriol out there, because we last checked in with Arcos when his guild had just blitzed Nax. It had just come out. They were the first guild through. They fucking smashed it. And obviously it was just kind of a let's wait and see what the other guilds do now on times. Arcos, what's the update?
On prog, sorry?
Oh, I don't fucking know. Prog times, you tell me. I can't think.
Well,
I'm half dead.
The last time we spoke was the first week of Nax, right? And we went in thinking no one was really going to compete for like highest difficulty. We were right, so we did just difficulty 1 and cleared it pretty quick and easy, right? There was one guild who managed to do like 11 bosses, I think, or 12 bosses. I think 11. On week 1, I think it was week 1. Called Beef Bar. They
I thought they
played
disbanded.
PTR
I
for
thought
like
they
8 hours a
disbanded.
day. Sorry?
I thought they disbanded.
No. I mean, they're called B Tribe now, but like it's the same people
Alright.
with the same backing as
Alright.
usual.
All right. Oh, is this all the Saudi money backing them?
Oh yeah. It's a salaried guild.
Yeah.
There's a few, and there's a few on Cataclysm as well. I mean, there's probably a bunch on retail. I don't know.
Yeah.
They managed to get quite far into the raid on week 1. I think a big part of that is just that they have a certain type of incentive that most other people do not have, and their only reason to play the game is to play for progress rate. Week 2, I believe. I don't remember if it was week 2 or week 3. I think it was week 2. There was an NA guild who managed to clear the raid fully. We were like, our hypothesis for the raid was that we probably wouldn't clear it until week 4, because we thought that we would only receive like 1 seal rank increase per reset. But then as the second reset began on NA, it was seen that you went from like seal rank 1 to rank 4, I think.
Rank 1 or week 1 was rank 2 max, and then week 2 was rank 4 max.
Yeah, right. So the increase was like 2 ranks per reset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had thought that the seal rank 4 we would receive that in reset 3. So we had kind of identified that as our full clear week. But then when that got released on reset 2, sorry, it's fucking hard to probably follow. We kind of felt it was obvious that the raid would fall apart, and we were proven right. An NA guild went in and full cleared it before the reset happened on EU. So I don't think anyone cares. I think they care, and that's fine. But they talked a lot of shit in the Warcraft Logs Discord, and everybody made fun of them, and it is what it is. But that's just the nature of a system like this. If they roll out a system like this for a raid, it's not going to be very competitive. So it's what it is. But we are number 1 on speed at the moment. We still don't have trust requirements. It's being discussed, and people are arguing all over the place. Yada yada yada. Yeah, we're still number 1, so I don't care.
DC Green, have you? I meant to ask. Have you? I presume you or Fred, because you're both degenerates, must surely spy in on old Arcos's logs there and see what his guild's up to, or no?
I'm not a big like log scrounger. I really only ever like look at my own if I'm trying to like figure stuff out, and like sometimes I'll look at like other high profile rogues if I can see like kind of what they're doing that I'm not doing. But I'm actually like, I will say I might be, I would maybe be more of a scrounger, but like I find that the Warcraft Logs website is such a piece of shit to use. It's so difficult to navigate. Nothing is like intuitive to it or like really makes sense. There's so many like drop downs and stuff that you have to go through to actually like look at the thing that you want to look at. I think that website is horrible. So I don't really engage with it very much. But I relate to all these things that Arcos was saying because like I'm in a guild with a bunch of people that care about this stuff, and this whole like Rip Bozo versus B Tribe thing was like very controversial.
Well, tell us your thoughts.
Well, to my understanding, the US servers reset before the EU servers. So Rip Bozo just like they were the ones that got to go into Nax with a rank 4 seal first, and so there's kind of like an asterisk on their accomplishment of like killing it all, right, as world first or whatever, because they kind of just like planned on doing that. They knew that they were going to get the reset one day before, that they knew they were going to get all this power that everybody else didn't have access to, and then they just kind of like used that to their advantage. And like Arcos was saying, they were talking a bunch of shit and stuff like that. So it's not like that there is kind of like an asterisk next to their achievement, but I think they just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because they were kind of gloating about it, even though there was like this big kind of if you were on the same footing as B Tribe was, you probably wouldn't have gotten world first. That was kind of like, and I don't know. I don't really have.
Yeah, and it's not even like there isn't really an argument to be made otherwise. Like there's nothing any guild in NA can do about the way the system is made. There's nothing they can do about when the reset happens in different regions of the world. There's nothing anyone can do about that except Blizzard, right? And if Blizzard decide to send out raid content where you are increasing in power on reset and they make the raid hard enough that it's not cleared in the first reset, I mean, of course, there's nothing. Nothing the other like a guild in a region can do about it. If you look at the clear times, like B Tribe went in at 5 a.m. EU time, like the moment servers went live, and they cleared the entire raid in 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Yeah.
The Riposo clear was like 8 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you compared their week 1 B Tribe versus Rip Bozo and then week 2 B Tribe versus Rip Bozo, like B Tribe's logs look better both weeks. But it's just that they happened to get it first, and then they got like a Wowhead article posted about them because like Wowhead needs to generate content and all this stuff, So it's just typical.
The only two people who cared about it were, or the two groups of people who cared about it was the writer for Wowhead because he wanted clicks, and the people in Rip Bozo. Like no one else gave a shit about it.
Pretty much, yeah. Everyone kind of
the race to world first max SoD was over the moment that we knew that the seals would go this high, and we couldn't clear it in week 1. Like then we just knew exactly like how it would go. Yeah. Anyway, we managed to go in on day 1 for EU. We full cleared. I think we got then like 4th in the world. If we want to be patty about it, we would go that we got it. We were the second non-salaried guild in the world to get it. But
you need to start.
I really hope that Scarlet Crusade isn't built like this,
dude.
I really fucking hope.
Okay, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Arcos? Sorry, you go then disagree.
What I mean is that this is a new raid that no one's ever going to have cleared before. And I don't want the race to doing it first to be determined on where in the world you are. Right?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Usually on retail, there's not a global release. So like NA gets the raid patch 24 hours or 13 hours or whatever before you. Usually in Classic, like since 2019, we've had a global release. Like it's in the evening time for EU, it's in the afternoon for Pacific time, and like dinner time or something for like East Coast. But a global release means that no matter in which region you are, if you care about progress rankings, you can compete for it. Like you're not going to wait 24 hours for someone else to gain access to something that someone else already has access to. And that's kind of what I mean. On top of that, if they make the raid difficulty in a way where it's not possible to clear in the first reset, then this issue comes back into it. Where if you gain power through some item like Seal of the Dawn for Naxxramas, if you gain power on the reset, then NA just has a leg up, like always. And then we just have the same thing happen again, as we did in Nux. Which isn't, if this is something you care about, isn't really fun, but again, all this race thing stuff, there's not many people who care about it or compete for it, so I don't think it's something Blizzard really cares about catering to.
DC,
for
thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if this will like tangent us into too different of like a topic, but I think that there's like a lot of criticisms to kind of be levied at Naxxramas and the sanctified gear and the hard modes and all that stuff that they tried. I would go in and kind of give the caveat that like I appreciate again them like trying this bold stuff, kind of like my opinion on Karazhan, but I think that a lot of it did kind of like fall flat on its face, and it's contributed to like some of these problems that Arcos is describing as well. Because like the seal and the difficulty and the resets and it making everything weird. And I think I even mentioned on like the previous pod that like my guild was kind of like felt like they were in a limbo state regarding Nax, because they knew that like parses and stuff weren't going to really matter till the seal was max rank. because it's like every week your parses are just going to get overwritten and blown out of the water because you're going to be doing like, 20%, 25% more flat damage or whatever, just because of the nature of this scaling seal. So, I think that like, I think that Naxxramas is a great raid, right? But it's always been a great raid. It's just like all the stuff that they added onto it to try and make it better or like more unique. It's like I commend them for it, but like a lot of it just really didn't land, and it created like a lot of issues. And some of them they did rectify. Depend. Like if you want me to go into it, I will. But like I don't know how much we're still kind of on the other topic.
No, fuck it. Let's go into it, mate. It's a fucking long form podcast. Do it.
Okay, so I think that like the sanctified gear is like really problematic. It created a lot of issues. It kind of was similar to.
And is this? Can I just interrupt? Is this an issue you're going to bring up beyond the annoyance of the gearing, the mini gearing phase, where you had to get it straight away and it replaced the stuff that you just worked hard for in AQ?
That wasn't like as bad. Like it was bad for like some classes because there were the situations where you had like some classes could only get like 7 of 8 sanctified pieces like of their armor type, and then they're like going into Karazhan to try and get like a cloth belt, because it gives 5% increased health and damage. So like you got to get this cloth belt. It's better than like your onslaught girdle or like whatever. So there was like a little bit of that. I think that those growing pains were like more minor, but like for example, as like a backstab rogue, you were in the situation where like you went in with your Karazhan gear and your undead slaying set, and you couldn't take any of that off till you got full bis because of the nature of like how sanctified worked and like the prior set bonuses enabling specific builds. So like for example, like the backstab build needs to wear at least 2 pieces of Bloodfang, which means that 2 of your 8 slots for sanctified gear that would come from like armor or like occupied by like non-sanctified pieces. And then as a rogue, you can't wear a neck, a cloak, a ring, or a weapon because of like the AQ set. So like there was just like all these like rigid gearing restrictions. And then especially with the nature of the undead slaying set contributing to like 5 sanctified slots when you were wearing all 3 pieces, that made it so you were kind of like married to this really unattractive, pieces of gear for like quite a long time. Now they did change that later. Like I think in week 3, they changed it so the undead set would be a 2-piece set bonus rather than 3. So instead of having to wear all 3 set pieces to get 5 sanctified total, you could wear 2 pieces and get 4 sanctified total. So that made it a little bit better for you to like start removing some of these like, out of raid pieces. But it just, depending on like the class you were, a lot of us couldn't get 8 pieces of sanctified without the trinket from Kel'Thuzad, and only one of those drops a week. It's a highly contested item, and it's like the piece that you need to like turn on a lot of builds. So fortunately for me, I was able to get one in week 3 and get like my bis online. But if you weren't lucky like that and you were playing like 4, 5 now weeks in Naxxramas and you're still trying to like put together like a complete sanctified set, it's pretty annoying. And it feels really like unsatisfying. And then like while you're wearing the interim gear, it doesn't feel good either, because you're just like, you don't. And then meanwhile, the people that are getting geared are unlocking these set bonuses that are increasing their damage by like, you're literally gapping people by like 15,000 damage per second if they don't have like tier bonuses and stuff, and you do. So there's a lot of disparity and stuff like that. Now, depending on the crowds that you roll with and stuff like that, it's not like really a big deal and stuff. But like, just like from a personal perspective, you could see someone doing like 20,000 more damage than you, and you're like, well, this is lame. Like we actually had a paladin join our guild the other day who he was like in the guild in like phase 2, and he's like come back and he was like, oh man, I did an axe the other day and I did 10,000 damage per second. I thought I was like on cloud 9, and then I look at the guy at the top of the meters, he's doing 35,000 damage a second, and it was like, oh man, I guess I need this gear to like compete, so he felt like very weird about his place in the raid and stuff. So that's like the sanctified stuff. And then like I think the hard modes are like a total failure. I think that they're all like really terrible. They don't like contribute in any unique way to like how you do the instance. You turn it off for like trash, which is just this whole weird thing where you have to like figure out how you're going to do the instance on 0 trash, and then you have to turn it up to hard mode 4, and then figure out which bosses you're going to kill, and then turn it back down to 0 so you can do the trash between the next couple bosses, and make sure that that takes 15 minutes so that you run out the timer so you can turn it back up for the bosses again. It's really stupid, and then like all the mechanics that the hard mode wings introduce are not really interesting at all. They're just like this tacked on kind of forgettable nonsense, kind of like AQ a little bit. So they're kind of like hard mode and name only, but they don't really do anything except for the A-bomb wing one, which literally if you get it like means that you can't participate in the fight a lot of the times, unless you're willing to like, you know, time the limited invulnerability potion, you know, which like circumvents the whole mechanic, which then makes the mechanic look stupid, and then creates frustrations where like you want to use like a resistance potion or something on this fight, or like a reaction potion, but you can't because of the A-bomb wing, so now you have to save every potion cooldown for a lip because you got the debuff, you know, shit like that. Like it's just like not great. So like I like all these ideas that they're like trying to do, but I think that like on every single facet of like trying to like make Naxxramas more unique than like the base Naxxramas like kind of failed on its face. Like I wouldn't want them to not try again in the future. You know, I hope that they, you know, they try and add some spice to the Scarlet Raid in the same vein. But these all like, I think that these all just had like more problems than like they were able to see from like the ground level. I think you really needed to be like 5,000 feet up to see like all the issues we were going to run into.
I'm going to disagree with you on the gear aspect of it. I think that was a unique thing, and it just goes into regular gear progression because you can go to Blackwing Lair, you know, in greens and such and whatever, and you're going to get gapped by somebody who's been there, you know, somebody who's put in the work and like grinding their pre-raid bids and shit. So I think the Sanctified gear is nothing different, nothing new, right? I do think.
Not really. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Going to your second point, I do think that your comments regarding their hard mode difficulties, yeah, I think it's valid for hard modes 1 through 3. Once you get to 4, it becomes more problematic. I do think that the being able to switch them, you know, every 15 minutes or so, like I think it's you have to kill X amount of bosses before you can switch it, or you wipe them out X amount of times, you know, just to force you to do the actual dungeon, you know, the actual raid as opposed to skipping, because it does make it kind of a joke, and that's why people get burned through it so fast. Say, oh, all right, we finished, you know, Spider Wing. Now we're gonna, you know, turn it to hard mode 2 and clear trash, and then go into A bomb and whatnot. So I agree. I mean, I think it should be like instead of activating the crystals, they should what level do you want, and then whatever wing you step into, that hard mode is already active. And then when you step out of it, it goes away. You know, something along those lines. I don't know how they would work that.
To your point about the Sanctified piece, like I feel like if you endorse that system, like you're endorsing people like getting pieces of tier and just having it sit in their bags for weeks and weeks. Because that's what that design does. The Sanctified system is so important. It literally changes like how fast you kill things, like how easy it is to heal, how much threat your tanks generate. It affects everything. And if you and again in combination, I think it really has friction with the fact that so many classes need set bonuses from the previous tiers in order to function. So you create this situation where the easiest way to get Sanctified is like with your 8 armor pieces, your neck, and your rings. But a lot of these classes are stuck with these AQ sets that take up their cloak and their ring. They're stuck with these ZG sets that take up their neck. They're stuck with these other tier sets that take up random armor pieces. So now you're looking at like, okay, the only way I can get 8 out of 8 Sanctified is I have to get 1 or 2 rings. I have to get 1 neck at least, or I have to get like 1 trinket. And like I said, the only Sanctified trinket is the one that comes off Kel'Thuzad, which is like really contentious, and you only get 1 per raid. So that's like my main issue. I don't personally have an issue with like, you know, I spent 3 weeks watching Feral Druids do 20,000 damage to my 8,000 damage. I don't really give a shit. I'm there to put up IEA. I don't really care like, where I fall on the meters. I mean, I do kind of, but like, you know, more of my frustration came from like having like tier in my bags just sitting there, and instead of wearing cool bone scythe armor, I'm sitting wearing this stupid undead slaying set, and I'm literally married to it until I get the exact 6 pieces of tier that go in these exact slots, the trinket and you know, some other highly contested piece of loot. For me, luckily, it was just gloves out of Karazhan, but you know, some people still have like really bad luck with those kind of drops. And especially if you were like a class that needed like Kagi's neck or something like that, and that's like the only way you can hit, like, man, there's just like the ripples that the sanctified system caused, like for people to get like personal gearing and stuff. It's undeniable.
Zim, go for it. You were going to say something?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's more options out there, and I think there's, the sanctified system, the ramping up each week. At the beginning, it was a lot more rough, right? Because most people only had, before they incorporated hey, if you wear 2-3 pieces, it means 5, whatever, before they added that. Or adjusted it, sorry. I think it's not meant to be like, hey, blast through this. You get all your sanctified pieces before the raid, whatever. I think it's supposed to be, hey, hard mode 1 is for you want a quick and easy clear, get after it. You don't even need sanctified. Who cares, right? But I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's not a perfect system. I do think it's not as entirely flawed as you say, and I think it's just Blizzard's kind of way to try and break the meta.
Well, like for example, if you did Naxxramas first week and you got chest bracers or glove tier tokens, you pretty much couldn't wear them because you break your Undead Slaying 3-piece. You'd have to get it in like your helm, your belt, your boots, and like so then that makes these like really contentious things. And then like also depending on this is more like set bonuses, so I won't go into that. But there was like a lot of like in my guild specifically because like we care about comps and like parsing and stuff like that. There was a lot of like classes that based on their set bonuses, it's like we're funneling all the tier to them till they get 6 pieces. Specifically Warlock because of the way that like Curse of Recklessness worked on the 6-piece tier bonus. And it had something to do with like unlocking hunters, not having to like run because I guess hunters provide Curse of Recklessness and Warlocks don't. But I'm not necessarily so focused on like the set bonus issues, mostly with like just how like shackled you felt to the Undead Slaying set. And how that like I said, I commend the fact that they nerfed the set bonus from needing all 3 pieces to just needing 2. I think that like alleviated a lot of stuff. I think it came a little too late for some people. Like by the time that happened for me, I was like, well, shit, dude, I've already just been wearing the set and couldn't put anything on. And then like the week that they nerfed it, I got all the remaining stuff that I needed. So I was able to be like, bis sanctified rather than like this weird wonky set. But yeah, I just think that like when you're compounding that with the perception that most people had that like, hey, I'm like replacing all this cool gear that I got in AQ with this like lame stuff that like drops off these stone guys, these ghosts, and I'm like buying these bracers off the H and I'm getting these gloves and they're like not that exciting. Then you get stuck with that for like 3 weeks. I think it like compounded onto that to just create like a pretty bad feeling in addition to like all the other wonky things that were
let me jump in. Well said. Girthman, Icono, Fred, let's throw you guys into the mix. DC, towel off in the corner. Get your trainer rubbing your shoulders. Get some water, brother. All right? You're doing great. Boys, Girthman, are you raiding Nax on a regular basis?
Unfortunately.
It sure is.
Well, let me ask you on that note sort of why you say that, but I'll just point this out for everyone, the boys. I mean, Tim's here in the crowd listening in. I know they probably fucking hate it when I point that out, but sorry, man, I got to do it every time. The reason I raised that, Girthman, is you've got, the guy sitting in the crowd listening to you right now who designs the encounters, right? So Tim's always very interested in feedback from our community on how he's doing as a job in terms of designing these new encounters for Season of Discovery. I did pose the question to the boys, as on day 1 when Arcos splits through Nax with his guild, hey, how are the encounters? How's it all feeling? What's new? Does it feel good? And we did get some sort of, hand-wavy feedback going like, I couldn't tell if it was too early to say. But now that you guys have had a bit more time with it, I mean, please be as brutal or as kind as you want to be. Tim can handle it. What are the sort of early reviews on the difficulty modes and what Tim's added to the encounters in Nax so far? What do you think?
Personally, I think it's been solid overall. I think that the wing mechanics could have been adjusted a little bit. Some of them seem like a non-factor. Like for example, we were talking about the construct mechanic, just essentially removing a player from the game, during a duration if you don't lip it. But other ones are just kind of a non-factor, like the military wing, for example. So like that throughout each week, each progression week, as you're going up and up in difficulty, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, whatever wing you're doing, unless it's the construct quarter, you didn't really feel any friction, is what I'd say. You do feel the number difference as far as like the scaling, which is nice, but it kind of felt like it was not as impactful as it should have been. Really, and I'm sure Zim can attest to this since we raid together on Tuesdays, but the only one we're really any kind of moaning and groaning about, or we have to play differently, is construct quarter, which is kind of a bummer, but also it's a blessing if you want to just have a smooth run.
Okay. Zim, do you want to take the ball and run with it?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think he's right. I mean, our guild, it's just an adjustment that some folks weren't totally, ready for, or, we didn't expect it. We did it on hard mode 3, easy peasy. And then hard mode 4, everybody, I think, shit a brick just because they saw the number 4 or something like that. But honestly, I do think there could have been like some things added in for like hard modes 1 through 3. Because as soon as you get high enough, sanctified gear or, seal, it doesn't matter. You just blow through it, ignore mechanics, and it's just a, clear fest. The only thing that hurts is trash, and you could change the hard mode for that.
Arcos, you were going to jump in. Tim's here listening. You're the fucking world's #1 raider in my heart and mind. Give us your fucking brutal feedback.
I'm not the world first raider in your pants. Fuck, dude. Yeah. Since Tim is there, first of all, thanks a lot for
nothing.
Leaving me on red on the DM that I sent. But
he left you on red. Perfect.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, I like what the other guy said.
No, but wait, can I call you out? Wait. Before you get into this, can I call you out, you piece of shit? Because I know what you would have fucking sent him. You would have done the old...
No. I was very, very courteous and polite.
Oh, you... Mate.
Very, very, very.
Mate, fucking...
there was
35...
no pitching or whining.
35 people in my guild were banned. Can you do something about it?
No. This was just Nax difficulty stuff.
Okay.
This was nothing regarding the one person who was banned.
Okay.
Who got unbanned like a day later.
Yeah.
So, no. So I like what the other guys said, that the difficulties on week 1 were significant, but they didn't really feel significant because you knew that you were going to get a seal rank in the upcoming weeks that would push you over your skill gap to beat the content, right? So if you were in a position where you were struggling with hard mode 3 or something, you could do half the raid and then you ran into a wall, you knew that next week your raid will be significantly more powerful for the only reason of having an increased seal rank. So you could then just brute force the designed content. Fuck, I have the picture seal breakpoints, right? So in the first reset we had the rank 2 seal. Rank 2 seal. That increases your damage by a total of 35%. Your healing by 25%, and damage and health 35%. If you had 8 sanctified pieces, which all the top guilds had 7 or 8 from farming Karazhan, right? So if you're in a casual guild week 1 and you're struggling with difficulty 2 or difficulty 3, maybe not your entire raid has a full set of sanctified gear, but you're getting gear from Naxxramas and most of it is tier and all of the tier is sanctified. So you just knew that your raid team would next week and the week after have more people with full 8/8 sanctified pieces, and the seal rank would increase every day on the reset day. So even though the content was too difficult for you currently, you could overcome that skill ceiling or that skill gap of your raid team by just having such an insane damage, health, healing, threat modifier every week increasing, right? So I think that knowledge and the fact that we could math it out before, right, because we knew all the modifiers on each seal, Sorry, no. So I think that kind of diminished a little bit the feeling of the raid for a lot of people because just having that knowledge, right? So it might diminish the feeling of accomplishment once you like struggle on a boss and then next week you go through it quite easily because you have a higher seal rank. But my how do I put this without sounding like a fucking idiot? The thing that threw me and like us collectively, like in that kind of the people who were rating on PTR, etc., is that the health values from the last PTR were broadly decreased by a factor of 100%, basically, or like a 50%. They were, every health pool was basically divided by 2, and that's the health pool we got from on the launch. So what I was DMing Tim about, and I DM'd Agrind and Cyrene as well, and of course no one really answered me, which is okay. But
Clearly losing
what
no
kind of
sleep over
sense-
it.
Yeah, clearly don't give a shit about me, which is fair. I wouldn't either. But my thinking was that like we did this on PTR, right? And we didn't have like when I was testing PTR, we didn't buy the tier 3. We didn't go do the raid with full Nax gear. We just went in with the gear that we would have on launch, right? And I think the way that they tuned the raid for the last PTR was would have been very difficult for 99.5% of the player pool on difficulty 4, like completely unbeatable. Like none of the top guilds would have done more than a couple of bosses on difficulty 4, and probably only the bosses that don't have an enrage mechanic. But because they reduced the health pools so significantly, we've kind of seen what we have seen, that everyone is doing Nax on difficulty 4. Like it is a breeze. The DPS values of players are insanely high. For the most part, healing is kind of irrelevant, especially if you have 3, 4, 5 healers in the raid. Trash is, and then that's one other thing that I asked about, because Trash health was decreased, but the damage done by the Trash was not decreased at the same rate, at least. So Trash still kills people a lot, but it has very little health, so the Trash itself dies quickly as well, which just feels a little bit weird. But then again, like it's Noxramas. Most people love the raid. Like it doesn't really matter like what the health values are, what the damage output is, what the DPS numbers by players are. Like we're having fun, right? Like we're enjoying the raid. But yeah, that was kind of what I was wondering, why they decreased the health value so much, and what the design thinking there was, because they've had to cap us at seal 7 now instead of taking us all the way to seal 10. Well, if they had not decreased the health value so much, a lot of people would have taken longer to progress through the raid, even getting higher seal ranks every reset. But I also think that would have made them appreciate it more and have a larger sense of accomplishment when they got through the content, because they would have seen that the top guilds would probably have taken 3 or 4, 5 weeks maybe to full clear the raid. So even though they are doing it on a slightly higher seal rank at week 6 or week 7 or week 8, whatever, like I think people would still find more satisfaction from that, rather than just suddenly the raid is pretty easy. Maybe 1 or 2 bosses are still difficult for pugs, but the rest is kind of feels more irrelevant.
Very well said, mate. Thank you for that. Let me run a fun little sort of group experiment here. And Tim, I'd be interested to see this one. I'm sure you can say I can't see any reason why you couldn't. Zoran and a few of the boys were asking just there in Discord chat that they're curious to know if it was intentional on your part to be able to have players negate the overcharge debuff with a lip. I'd be interested to know the answer to that too, if you can say.
It's also not just lip, it's just an invulnerability. And the reason for it is that the debuff that you get is not a magic debuff, it's a physical debuff. So if you use a Paladin Bubble, a Paladin Hand of with Blessing of Protection, or a lip, you can also ice block it, I think. Like if a class has an invulnerability ability that makes them invulnerable, they can bypass that mechanic completely.
Okay.
But it's still RNG who gets it, right? Like three
Yeah,
people get it at the same time. They get a 10-second warning, and if they are invulnerable to like physical effects, as that timer runs down to 0, they don't. The next effect is not applied.
All right.
I kind of am 50-50 whether it's intended or not. I kind of feel like maybe it's intended so that people can play around it, because the damage value that you're taking at difficulty 4, because the damage it does to you and to people around you is percentage based. It's not a fixed value, right? So you can't really play with it if you're doing percent damage to everyone around you. Like you it's hard to out heal that.
Which is weird because it gives attack speed and casting
Yeah.
speed. So it has like an
Exactly.
incentive to it to like find a way to like bend it to your will, but it
Yeah.
just does so much damage that it's like it's better to just avoid.
And I also think that the range was increased from PTR because we were able to stack melee together with it, and people were fine. Not even in Nax gear, just in like AQ gear. So I think the range was also decreased, because now like if you try to do like 2 melee groups either side of the boss, they're just going to sap each other and people die.
All right. Let me run a quick little exercise here. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but we'll give it a go. I want to know what the group would come up with here for their like dream boss encounter, because I'm always intrigued by what players like and don't like in their boss encounters. So let's pose the following hypothetical where we get to the end of the Scarlet Crusade raid, right? The upcoming fucking dungeon crawl we're going to go through, and let's say you down the last human boss, and then you think you're done, but oh no, look out! It's the Scarlet Crusade. It's like a big red and white ball that comes out, right? you got to fight it. What would you guys, and it's first in, best dressed, I'd love to sort of everyone pitch in a little bit on this one. What would you guys have the last boss of the Scarlet Crusade do? What's if you are now Tim Jones? I have said you have to design this boss in a way that you think will engage the player base. Let's go from the start of the encounter. Like, what kind of things are we throwing in the pot here?
I think presentation goes a long way to. I'm not an encounter designer, right? But when you said like
you're not,
like
what? That's outrageous.
Boss, yeah, I know. But surprise, I'm not. So the thing that came to mind though when you said that, I don't know if anyone here has played Elden Ring or anything, but in the recent Elden Ring DLC, I think one of the coolest bosses, and by no means like the best boss fight or anything like that, is Bale the Dread, which is just giant dragon that has been like, there's lore that he fought like another dragon lord, and so when you fight him, he's like missing a leg and his like wings are shredded, and when you first encounter him, he falls out of the sky. Like, he doesn't like glide in because his wings are all fucked up. So he falls out of the sky and makes this like monumentous thud. And then you engage in a fight with him. And then in the midsection of the fight, like once you get him like 50% or something like that, he like grows wings with like lightning magic. So he grows these like lightning wings and then starts like flying around the arena. He has like a little bit of like an aerial phase that like, and none of the mechanics like in between him like thudding onto the ground and you first getting to lay your eyes on him and like taking in like his breathtaking design, and then him like taking off to the skies later, and there's no like interesting mechanics or like, whoa, I've never seen this before, and this is like engaging my brain on like some kind of like massive level that I never thought. It's just like very satisfying to see the presentation and like the creativity that went into it. So I think if the end of Scarlet had like a Dreadlord that like had like an air phase or something like that, and like, if it was like one of those like the chest plate is like on the ground but then it like floats into the air and like a tornado of bats like spins and it like, and then the Dreadlord appears. Ooh. And then he starts fighting you guys and he's like putting people to sleep and he's like casting Carrion Swarm and maybe he has like a vampiric aura, so it has like all those Warcraft 3 feels. I think that like it goes into like what people juice about when they're like, oh man, this fight is like, ah. You know,
How-
I think that like Kel'Thuzad fight on hard mode 4 is like really hitting that as well, with him like resurrecting out his fucking phylactery when you kill him. Like that's really cool and really thematic. And he also is like summoning a lot of like minions again in that phase as well. So it like leans into that like necromancy, like lich, fantasies and stuff like that. So I think when they hit like the thematics, that's like what really makes the fights cool, and
No,
not necessarily about like some of the mechanics, because
I love
I don't
it.
even know if Classic has like a ton of cool mechanics that I'm like, oh man, this fight because of that thing. I'd have
Well,
to think about it.
I think there's always room for at least engaging mechanics, whether or not they're particularly unique or novel is one thing. But I like what you're doing here, DC Green. Let's keep going with it. It's like ad lib. We'll do a bit of yes and. I like your point about a bit of bombastic, epic design can overcome pedestrian mechanics and still get the players caught up in the encounter. I mean, how do you guys feel? I've always wondered, how do you guys feel in general about boss encounters with multiple bosses? So you go with like the Dreadlord thing. I'm not saying that I'm for or against this. I'm just throwing it out there as a general survey thing. You talk about Dreadlords. Like, what if it was like a conclave of Dreadlords a la Four Horsemen? Are you for or against that? Do you prefer one big target dummy in the middle of the room, or do you like having the raid divided up and hitting different things?
I do think the most engaging fight is probably Four Horsemen. I wish that the back two ads didn't run to their spots immediately, but I like how if there's no one within range, they get, they smokes the raid. It forces people in the raid to take on roles that they're not usually accustomed to, which I think is unique. It gets people out of their comfort zone, although some of us are creatures of habit and they don't enjoy that.
What do you other guys think? Yay or nay on the single versus multi-boss thing?
Personally,
that
hate council fights.
Yeah? Why?
Just too many moving parts for a lot of people, and I feel like it doesn't feel like you're fighting a boss per se. You're fighting like a group,
like a pack of
which, I mean, I
mobs.
guess is kind of the theme, but yeah,
Yeah.
a mob. Like whether it was the one in the arena Argent Dawn whatever fight in Wrath, where you're like it kind of feels, I guess, more of like a more mechanics based version of that PvP fight in that Argent Dawn raid, or the Grand Crusade, whatever it's called.
Okay.
I mean, just everything is, I don't know, it's just always a cluster. And kind of like what DC Green was talking about, like this
Trial of the
presentation. Yeah. But like what DC Green was talking about, presentation, when there's like 4 different bosses that somebody has to be, tanking this or that, positioning, it kind of takes away from the overall aesthetic vibe, whatever. Like, yes, it's a cool whatever to have everybody do their own thing, but you're not fighting a singular boss.
Alrighty. Icono, what do you think? Single versus multi-target boss fights?
I appreciate the inclusion of council fights. I think it helps break up the repetition. If every boss was a big giant that you hit, it would feel a little repetitive. I'm trying to think through all of the different raid tiers. I feel like every single raid that has multiple bosses also includes a council fight. Maybe Mount Hyjal is one I'm struggling to think of. But it feels like it's almost always included. I feel like it's intentional to break up the pace.
And you're okay with
variety.
it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It gives people responsibilities they wouldn't normally have.
Fred, how about you?
Council fights versus single target fights?
Yeah, what do you think of them?
I'm fine with them. Like the council fights we had in SoD. I mean, I guess we have the first one we had was in Nomer, right? Which was the
Menagerie.
The Menagerie, right? And then in ST we had the bunch of trolls.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would consider the twin drakes or the twin trolls.
Can I just say
council fights.
I really liked the Menagerie fight.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I mean, it's interesting too to have a fight where, I mean, when you're 10 man and you're fighting 3 things, because that really sort of changes the vibe a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say just on an encounter level, besides like this very specific question about, I like fights where there are mechanics where everyone participates, and so you can accomplish that with a council fight, but it doesn't have to be. I think like Saffron, for example, the hard mode 4 Saffron. So, the hard mode 4 adds new mechanics to Saf and KT, not really to anything else. Where okay, everyone has to stack up for these things. Okay, there's like now there's like ice on the ground, you have to move. That's interesting. I think the hard mode 4 KT as well, where like the best way to do it is kind of in phase 3. When he's recovering, he's dying, is kind of everyone split up and do trash and not even really focus on him in older positions. I think that's interesting. much more interesting than just like a target dummy where everyone just turns their brain off and does nothing. I don't know. I mean, just to sort of change the topic slightly, I am very excited for Scarlet Raid just because every time they've done something unique, I think they've really cooked. Like I thought BFD, Nomer, and ST, which were basically new raids from the ground up, were all excellent, really, really great stuff. And Kara Crypt's obviously good as well. I mean, I'd say with ST there was just way too much trash. I don't know why they had that fucking like 30 minutes of trash for the first boss bowl, or why they had so much trash between the Twin Drakes and the Twin Trolls. But in terms of the actual encounter design, I thought it was great. So I really have a lot of confidence in their ability to give us something good for Scarlet when they're cooking something from the ground up.
Interesting. Sorry, go for it, mate.
I suspect Scarlet might have like a suspicious amount of multi-target fights. There's kind of a lot of AoE stuff on the gear, on the items that have been data mined. There's things that like increase the amount of targets that you multi-shot that I've heard from like some of the hunters. I don't know if you guys have seen the new Ashbringer. It's pretty insane. Besides giving 3% chance to crit, which is pretty crazy, the weapon proc on it is when you swing it, you have the ability to hit up to 5 targets, and every target that you hit gives you 30 strength and agility, and it stacks up to 5 times.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's insane. So it seems like they might be leaning into like a lot of council fights or maybe just fights with like lots of ads and stuff like that as well, which could make like it's still yet to be seen whether we're going to be dealing with like an actual Scarlet presence or if it is some kind of guise for like Dreadlords or like an undead presence as well. People have mentioned that like a lot of the gear is sanctified and stuff, so there is speculation there might be like undead and stuff in there so that you'll be able to utilize the 6-piece set bonuses that we've been getting out of Nax, so it doesn't feel so bad to just like abandon all that stuff.
To be fair though, just on the Ashbringer thing that you mentioned, like I find it interesting to see what stats they've attached to it or what procs or whatever, because there would have been quite a bit of pressure on such a hyped item. Like everyone talks about the fucking Ashbringer this, Ashbringer that. Here they are, they're finally, finishing it off. They're finishing the quest line or the item or whatever and going, all right, nerds, here's that thing you've always wanted. We're doing the Ashbringer. Like, you really wanted it to have some fucking oomph, some impact, and it sounds like they've clearly done it. And you don't want to over-deliver, but you certainly, like, in terms of, like, you can't have it be a one-shot item, but you can't have it under-deliver.
Yeah, it looks like they've hit a nice balance with it. I'm not daring to get one or anything like that, but if I was on the list of people that's going to receive one, I'd be pretty happy with, getting to swing that in the future. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun and be very thematic. And I think people that have been waiting all this time, I think that they're gonna come to like a pretty satisfying climax when they get it.
That's fucking, here we go. Speaking of satisfying climaxes, Arcos, have you already got dibs on for your alt warrior on the first Ashbringer or what?
No. I don't think it's even been discussed. We'll see who it's best for on Sims, and we'll give it to that person.
My goodness. Is anyone here keen to get their hands on an Ashbringer?
Yeah, Shaman Cryo, right?
I think most
all those shaman
swords.
swords.
Our view...
It is Pally War Hunter only.
Yeah, I know. Shaman Sword.
Our view on this, it's the same with RTS. If an orange pixel is that important to you in a seasonal game mode, you're raiding in the wrong place. Like I could not care less that the fucking pixel on the weapon is orange. It's going to the person who it's the most beneficial for the raid team on. And
Here we go.
There's no discussing it.
Here we go.
Yeah, sorry. Like it's the same with
game.
fucking mounts, and it's the same with tabards and all of this shit. Like if this is what's interesting for you in the game, perfectly fine. Just go and play somewhere else and be far away from me.
Plays the game 25 hours a day and pretends not to care about things. The apathy is out of control. All right.
Yeah. And here I am sitting with 2 RTS stuffs on characters that I don't care about, that I don't log in on, that I don't rate on at all. Like they're just there, like in case they're needed, right?
All right. Hey,
Yeah.
let's bring it back.
Cut and dry gameplay, right?
Rather than finish off the conversation about dream mechanics and everything, look, yes, I do hope the Scarlet Raid is fantastic. We'll talk a bit more about it maybe when we know more about it. But for now, just bringing it back to Hyjal, can I ask, just anyone jump in first? Let's see if we can get Fred, Girth, Zim, or Icono on this one. Not to shut Arcos and DC up, but we'll let them bring up the tail end on this one.
I like it when you said, yeah.
Tell me, like, the Hyjal thing. Are you guys excited about this? Basically, again, for you guys who haven't been catching up with the news, people are seeming to speculate that it looks like we might be going to Hyjal in some way in the next phase of SoD. There's been screenshots of a huge slime type boss in the middle of Hyjal. You can now access the area, and that's pretty much all I know. Are you guys pumped? Tell me what you think this is going to be or what they're going to do with it. Do you want to go?
I'm really hoping for a Agile Raid 2.0, where they just send us waves and waves of trash over and over again for an hour, and we just work on that.
Fuck it, make it 2 hours. For 15 phases of 15 waves of ads. My body is ready. What about you, Fred?
Well, it will be interesting to see. So the Hyjal that we saw obviously was Caverns of Time Hyjal, right? So this would be, it seems to be set in the modern day, so to speak. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. From what I've seen, it looks like it might just be specifically an Ashbringer related quest line. Do we have leaks that it might be another raid or more content than that?
I don't think so. We haven't seen much.
Just screenshots of what's there now instead of what used to be there.
Yeah,
It looks like it's the overworld. Yeah,
it could be good. As I said before, if they develop new content, I think they've smashed it out of the park every time they've done that. So I really have a lot of confidence in their ability to deliver good products. I just don't know. It seems premature to me to speculate too much about Hyjal because we don't really know what it actually is going to be at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Anyone on the slime world boss, or what do you think is going on there?
Well, so it says the Ashbringer quest line says you have to cleanse it in the Well of Eternity, and the slime is in the Well of Eternity. It seems like it's just a roadblock to getting your Ashbringer.
Yeah, stick it in the goo.
That's what I said earlier.
I think the slime is just a placeholder for a different boss.
Fair enough.
I got a quick question.
something that looks good.
Do we know yet if the new Hyjal will take place inside the Caverns of Time dungeon?
Yeah, so we
zone?
know it's modern day because what happens is you talk to an NPC in Everlook, and that one flies you to Hyjal. So it's like a Druid of the Talon, night elf.
There you go.
So is there a chance they could be using the assets that are in the game already, of where Hyjal is a zone without NPCs?
Well, I think that's what's happening.
That would be the best. I think that would be the best choice for them to do. We don't need to go back to Caverns of Time. Hyjal is a magical place. It was the home of the fucking World Tree. If there isn't some kind of residual magic that some burning legion that the Dreadlords in the Scarlet Crusade are summoning to get, and that's gonna bleed into the next thing, if that happens to be the way they want to take it, I don't think anyone could complain that that's how we got there.
All right. Let me ask one last question on SoD before I just want to talk a little bit about Anniversary Black Lotus as the next big topic once we finish up on SoD. But just this last thing, get it off your chest now, guys. Bitch away or gush about your fucking class like DC Green is going to do. Tell me right now, as of right now, today in Season of Discovery, the current balancing, which class fucking... Even though we don't like to talk about nerfs and no one should ever be nerfed, which class absolutely is unfairly destroying it and which class is absolutely unfairly just persona non grata in the game?
Fuck Paladin.
The second part is the 100% enhancement summons.
Yeah.
And to a much lesser extent on very niche situations, Fury Warrior. But
Enhancement Shaman has been arguably, it's been arguably the worst DPS spec since BWL. Probably the worst BWL, although Elemental Shaman had lower DPS, but it had better AoE, and certainly the worst outlier in AQ and Nax. So
I mean, it's been better than the Arms Warrior. Sorry to butt in, but
Oh, sure. I
I'll
guess
agree that you don't take Arms Warrior as a DPS spec. Usually people don't. Most people don't. But they did say they wanted Two-Hand Warriors to be viable. Arms just hasn't been. But I
sure.
still
I
would
guess
agree with you. Enhancement has just been in a bad spot.
let me modify.
Deserves some love.
It's the worst non-obsolete spec, and by non-obsolete, I mean a spec of that class that fills that same role between tank, physical, melee DPS, range DPS, or caster DPS. So if you want to play, a melee DPS warrior, there's another spec you can play that's not arms, which is worse than enhance. Whereas if you want to play a melee DPS shaman, there is no better option, right? There are like 3 specs, like I think like Arcane Mage was down there, like Smite Priest is down there, sure, but like I don't really, or Arms Warrior, but I don't count those because you have the opportunity to play that exact same class in that exact same role with a different spec, that's better.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think it's a fair assessment.
And then I think the ones that are absolutely killing it, I mean, I think it's got to be Boomy, right? Just absolutely, it's been insane since PWL. It was insane in PWL, insane in AQ. You think Hunter? I mean, also like
melee hunters are like
as
insane.
Boomy, you literally just press Starfall and then you go AFK, and that's like most of your damage.
Yeah,
I piss off the raid.
I don't think there is one spec that is like gapping everyone else, but I think it's more that the power of a handful of different raid specs is insane in relation to the simplicity of playing it and the complexity of other specs that are performing much worse. And there you can especially say the Boomy, it is so ridiculous how much damage they are able to do with so little effort. It's the same for Ranged Hunter. It's insane how much burst they can do on pull, and then really good sustained damage over a longer fight with very little effort. Melee Hunter is just like pressing Mongoose Bite and doing 125,000 damage, right? In one hit. Feral kind of, but also kind of not. I think the design ridiculousness is, like you say, that one ability is just doing 99% of your damage, like Starfall, Killshot, Mongoose Bite, Rake. You're pressing one button and it's doing 99% of your damage, and then to differentiate yourself from others playing this spec, you're eking out like 0.2% of your damage by playing very well on this ability, and then 0.5% by playing another ability very optimally, right, like in your rotation. So you're having to min-max insanely to gain very, 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 very little damage, and that's the only thing that separates you from the brain-dead person with a pacifier in their mouth that just press Starfall, right? I think that's the stupid thing, and that's the thing that should be nerfed. Like, make the specs actually require more fucking brain cells than a lamppost to do well on, rather than just press one button and then Starfall, you press Starfall, and then you press one other button that resets the duration of Starfall. Like, it's just so insanely dumb to play. Like, you literally don't need a functioning brain to be able to do it, and if you aren't able to do it, you really just should go play fucking Raid Shadow Legends or something.
Well, like, to be fair, there are times where you can't just do that. Like if you're on Kel'Thuzad and like especially hard mode 4, where it's like imperative that you have to crowd control the people that get mind controlled, because like at that level they will literally just like one shot other people in your raid. The Boomkin has to. That's like literally why they hotfixed a toggle for Starfall in this last patch, is because in fights like Kel'Thuzad, where your Starfall is going off an infinite amount of times because it's refreshing on undead targets, it's like breaking all the CC and stuff. Now they could like transform into bear or like a different form to cancel it, but a lot of, like you said, they're pacified and brain dead, so they're not doing that. So there are times where it's like the people that do play that way get punished, but again, it's more at like the fringes, kind of like you're saying, where it's like you have to do all this like extreme stuff to eke out like minor reward for it.
Yeah, I mean, sure, like, but you also, if you're playing in demon pugs at demon hours, like in 3 a.m. or something, you're not going to expect people to be playing,
for sure,
properly,
yeah.
I guess. So yeah, like, I don't think there is one spec that is like this needs a nerf in raid. Like, sure, you can argue for whatever in PvP. But if there is something that I would want to nerf, it's just how ridiculously simple some of the specs are and how ridiculous the output from them is compared to other specs that are very complex in comparison and not doing anything close in the output, despite being more complicated and requiring more focus or sweat or investment or min-max or whatever. Yeah.
DC,
That's the way I view it anyway.
you and Zoran are tag teaming on the majors here as well.
Well, I don't really have like I don't know like if there's a problem with mages. I just know that they're doing like a ton of damage right now, and it seems to have to do with a set bonus that they get for. They get like a 40% damage buff after channeling evocation to its maximum duration. So a lot of them are just using that not in the fight but before the fight to get a 20-second like 40% damage buff. And that's making them do insane numbers, right? Because they just get this like fat ignite on the target that just gets refreshed through the entire fight. And so it's just doing like way more damage than it has any business doing. And it's not only their ignite because it's a 40% flat damage bonus to like all their damage. So for that entire window, and then even after it falls off because the ignite continues to roll, they're doing like a crazy amount of damage. Now I don't know if that warrants a nerf, or I don't know if that's like brain dead, like the Boomkin situation or anything like that, but it just is what it is. Like mages are performing like very well right now to the point where like a lot of people in my guild have like leveled mages in the past couple of weeks to get them ready for parse weeks and stuff, because there's a world where people in my guild were theorizing bringing like 15 mages to patchwork, like literally having the melee and patchwork be only your tanks, and then having like the rest be like ranged healers and mages, so that you can get like the craziest parse on patchwork. So there's things like that being discussed. But yeah, classes that I didn't really hear brought up besides myself were like melee hunter is like really outperforming right now. So Josh, when you were singing its praises like a couple months ago, like it's really come home to roost at this point. Like they're like an insane damage dealing class. Like they're crazy.
There you go. So what you're trying to say is I made it cool. I understand. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You made a good call there, yeah. Incentivizing people to play melee hunter. If they did, they're really, enjoying those dividends now.
There you go. Yeah, I'm calling
Rat
out.
Paladin also seems to be really high. I believe, though, only twisting Rat Paladins. I don't think Exo spam Paladins are as much damage, but like Seal Twisters are like insane. They do so much damage. It's crazy.
I'm the
Depends
only.
on the fight length so much. Like Exodin twisting is very, very, very close on 30-second fights, but because of the seal cap, it's very unrealistic for a lot of people to experience like a sub 50-second fight on any boss. But when you look at 60-second to 120-second results, twisting is just way ahead. So, but twisting is also very shit on Trust, because Trust has such little health values now after the difference on PTR, that Trust dies too fast for you to properly twist a lot. So a lot of the Paladins are going, they're like changing their spec on Trust and then changing it again for bosses.
I'm the only player alive.
Waiting for bosses.
I'm the only player alive that hates twisting. I'll never understand why 99% of the player base thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Weird.
It's so weird.
I think it's weird too.
All right, guys.
The numbers that it produces are undeniable.
Yeah, and
I've watched my fellow guildmates play it, and it's
but
crazy.
then I'd rather the players just say flat out, look, I'm just obsessed with big numbers, as opposed to, oh, it's really fun and engaging gameplay. Like, no, it's weird, it's shit. Like, you just like that you slap with it.
Yeah, actually, one of the paladins I was talking to yesterday was like, the crazy thing about the twisting community is that 90% of them can't fucking twist, but they all demand that it like be in the game.
Oh, and, like I can do it,
really
I can do it, but I remember doing it in Wrath or whatever fucking version of the game I was doing it in, and like you need the weak aura to show you the 0.4 second window to hit the button in, and I'm like. I remember saying on the show, like, how is this fun? I am staring at a weak aura and not at the raid. But anyway.
A lot of raiding has kind of become that, but I understand your point.
Yeah. All right, guys, look, we're going to move on to, I really want to have a fun fucking big brain conversation about Black Lotus prices on anniversary servers. this is your last chance. We've got the big kahunas from the classic team sitting here listening in. Grand's listening, Tim's listening. Last chance, speak now or forever hold your silence for this week. Anything to bitch about or praise SoD for right now before we move on?
Yes.
Go.
I would like to praise them for making SoD a very enjoyable game mode post Phase 3.
Get your tongue out of there, assholes. Oh my God, you're such a suckhole.
Oh my God, I need to butter them up for the second part. Yeah, I think a lot of people are missing out and they're just stuck on something in Phase 2 or Phase 3 that annoyed them, or they had some bad experience with something and they've not looked back. I think if they were to look back, if they were to have dipped their toes back in at any point post Phase 3, I think people would understand just how fucking fun this game is, legitimately.
But having said
what I would
that,
like to shit about is that Warrior feels in a fucking sad spot right now, so I would really like some tweaks to Warrior, namely
Paying for assets.
decrease the percent modifiers that we are relying on and increase the base damage values in return, so that we feel useful on longer fights and we don't just gap everyone else on short fights. Thank you. Would be super nice. Happy Friday. Oh, it's fucking Saturday. Happy Saturday.
Well said. Well said. Oh, that one beer must have really gone to your head there, Arcos.
No, I'm on to the whiskey now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm inside the glass. Okay.
Anyone else? Last chance on SoD before we move on. Okay.
I mean, I would say it's too bad that a lot of people do think of SoD as being, it's the class balance changes and the ruins and that's it. Because I think they really kind of did a good job on a lot of mechanics. I think the currency systems with the reals are really good. I actually do think the variable difficulties are good. I know there was a lot of hate for the sanctified system. I definitely agree with a lot of the points made. I do think it is interesting though to have this sort of system more so than just gearing up, but just as you draw closer to the next phase, getting stronger and stronger and letting more casual players do it, and people who have been doing it for a long time sort of clear it more easily, I think is not necessarily a bad thing. And I definitely think the sanctified system, insofar as it sort of forced a huge amount of engagement with Karazhan Crypts, was also good. Although I do agree with a lot of the issues that it fixed too. I really, and then obviously the quality of life things, I think, and you're going to touch on this now. I mean, the economy is just so different in SoD compared to vanilla.
Oh my
and
God,
I know
yes.
some people play the game because all they want to do is, look at spreadsheets and maximize their value or whatever. But as someone who plays the game not for the economy, I definitely very much appreciate what they did with SoD. So and the changes to the world buffs as well. Instead of having to do 4 hours of chores to collect my world buffs, now someone just goes AFK and makes bandages for an hour, and then then they bring the world buffs. You constantly pop them in raid that costs very little to do so. I think a full round of world buffs now, with all the nerfs they did to it, now costs 60 gold or something. That's great. I really like that change. So yeah, more tongue and butthole for me. Sorry.
No, I was going to say they're absolutely more tongue and butthole. I'm surprised you didn't add a enhanced charm and a broken fuck you. Do something about it.
I mean, I already said that.
Yeah,
Listen,
fair
my cope, and this is part of the reason why I actually am very excited for the Horde and Alliance, faction changes. Even though back in the day I was like, oh no, this is part of the identity of Classic, is that there are only that there are all these differences that kind of feeds into the faction identity thing. That's all true, but I do think now this late into SoD, it's not really going to change all that much. And also, what with sort of adding a lot of the abilities to both sides, like Wild Strikes, or Paladins have Tremor Totem, for example, innately, although I'm not sure they actually use that rune. I do think there isn't actually all that much loss, and there's a lot more gained by doing the cross faction classes.
I can't.
Anyway.
There is a lot to gain. I'll tell you this, Fred. I can't wait. There is going to be a moment where all those snarky, giggling Alliance cunts are going to see a Horde Ret Paladin running at them, pumping up his seal, and they're going to get a taste of their own medicine, and they will stop laughing very quickly after they realize, like,
Yeah, they're going to be hit with repentance, and then
Yeah.
the paladin's going to close them for free, and then hodge them, and then kill them during the duration that's stun. Yeah, that's going to happen. But that's my copium too for enhancement shaman balances. There are more alliance players. Enhancement shaman has been really, really bad since BWL. So it's been several phases. Now alliance are going to get a taste of it, and then Blizzard's actually going to act and make us good. That's the pure copium tip.
very
Let's
good.
give more people AIDS. Surely that'll get them to develop a
Oh
cure.
my god.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. All right, boys. Look,
Wait. Can I do
Yeah,
my? I'm sure,
sure.
my take is like highly anticipated because
Sure.
I'm about to tongue and butthole a lot here.
Oh
so,
my god.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, as far as SoD, like, to the people that have been like on the fence about SoD and all this stuff, I think that, like, I want to commend SoD for really putting, in my opinion, into perspective, like, what is important about Classic. And I think that those are that we're in Azeroth, and that the game is being developed with like older priorities in mind that aren't like, it feels like SoD is kind of being developed without that like chasing monthly active users or monthly active subscribers kind of mindset. And I think those are the like really important things. I think that like preserving things like, having one spec, because right now we have dual spec, like having the bosses drop like a scarce amount of loot compared to like the abundant amount of, like, there's so many changes that have been made to SoD that enhance the classic experience, that were like these archaic tenets that we all clung onto because we didn't know anything better. But if we just opened ourselves up to the experience of them like changing all these things and adding all this quality of life, I think that what you'll realize is that the only thing that's important is that all that shit is in Azeroth, that we're not in Outland, that we're not in Shadowlands, that we're not in Grim Batol or like whatever came in the other expansions with all the other like baggage that got brought in because of like changing gaming trends and like what the corporations like wanted to prioritize and stuff. Like none of that really matters. Like all that matters is that we're in the classic world, the world that we love, the one that we have the most time in. We get to spend the most time in it again, and we get it with like all these things that just make the experience like holistically better, that we were so staunchly, defending and hemming and hawing about whether they should be changed or not in like Ubi's past survey and stuff like that. Like all the changes that they've made have been great because we're in Azeroth, classic Azeroth, and they're treating the players like how we used to get treated back in like 2004, 2005. I think those are the most important things. So as long as they keep developing the game with like those two, like, and those two things remain constant, I think like SoD is just the best version of the game. And I think it's really hard to refute that.
Do you see what's going on here, guys? The second he's in the same room with the devs, doesn't that fucking tune change?
No, I mean, if you want to give me 30 minutes to like rail on him, I will. But I like being positive.
Oh, here we go. Now he's Captain Positivity. All right, look, Tito's here. That means it's time to talk anniversary. Tito, mate, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good, mate. Good. Well, I'm dying, as you can fucking hear. But
Yeah, sounds pretty rough, dude.
Yeah, I'm literally like I'm struggling to stay on stream, but I'll fucking do it because I love this show and I love you guys. So look, you're sustaining me right now.
What a man.
Yeah,
What
I
a
know.
man.
Fucking man of the people. All right, look, mate. I want to take this as highbrow as we can because I'm really, really intrigued by this conversation. I reached out to a guy on Reddit who sadly declined the invitation to come on the show, but was making some fantastic, very funny posts about what's going on with Black Lotus at the moment. And basically, I just feel like I've kind of I wouldn't say I've ignored it, but like I've not felt the need to really talk about it on the show over the last, 6 to 8 weeks. But now I think it's reached a tipping point where we kind of have to dive in on this as a focus subject. And it's really, really interesting to me what is going on with this market. As someone just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the SoD versus anniversary economies, they're a funhouse mirror. It is insane what's going on in anniversary, in my humble opinion. But, Tito, you're an anniversary player. You can tell us more about it. Just tell me if what I'm saying is correct. All the subreddit posts are coming up and saying, look, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. It's just hit a new high, I believe, of about 370 gold for a single Black Lotus on the anniversary realms. The players are screaming for Blizzard to implement SOM style changes in that Black Lotus should be a low chance to drop off of any high level herb. That's not in the game at the moment. And the players, you know, even though this isn't a no changes realm, they are screaming for, you know, a changes style policy to come into effect with regard to Black Lotus. Tito, is that a fair assessment of the situation at the moment?
It's a difficult one because I'm on the OS servers and we don't have the same problem.
Yeah, that's very
I
different.
think
Yeah.
I think the problem on Night Slayer can only be market manipulation.
Well, 100%. It's 100%.
I think there's no way around that, and I don't know if adding SOM style changes will affect that necessarily, because people still won't go out farming in Eastern Plaguelands, right? For a chance of getting Lotus. At the moment, it's 15-minute respawns on what, 3 or 6 layers. Anyone could go get the Lotus if they went out there and spent 45 minutes. They could get 3, 4 Lotus, cover them for flask for a couple of weeks. That's not the problem, and I don't think that's the solution.
The only counter to that, and I don't know, but obviously we did see it on 2019 Realms as well. I could hear the people screaming back at you, Tito, from around the world saying, "But Tito, how do I compete with the bots that are under the ground picking these things on spawn?"
They may be doing that, and you can't compete with that. That's up to Blizzard.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah. But there's that many layers. There's that many spawns of Lotus. I don't think it's a problem. I think that's irrelevant. You can just go out and get them. Again, OS being smaller, I think the gold buying population being smaller means that there's not as many bots. There's not as much draw to come here and do that. So we've got none of those problems.
Yeah.
But I even so, there's just so many Lotus spawns at the moment. There's no way bots can be getting, you know, that many Lotus spawns every 15 minutes.
So
just right around, you'll get them.
Go brings up a good point. I didn't actually even ask or think of it. I've said what the price, you know, the Lotus is 370 gold. How much are the actual flasks? Go's saying they're about 400. Have you heard something similar, even though I know you're not playing on that server, but...
Yeah, they're more expensive. Dreamfoil, a lot of herbs are quite expensive. It's not just the Lotus.
Okay, so this is for everyone, guys, by the way. I know I'm just starting with Tito, but this is going to turn into a larger economic conversation, and more importantly, it'll get me and DC Green going back and forth once again on the, you know, the silly argument that he hates about, do you really need to play the game with this item? But we'll get there eventually. Before we get there, I just want to say, you brought up a really interesting point straight off the bat, Tito, that we just have to dive into straight away, which is that of market manipulation. And look, when anniversary servers first launched a few months ago, 2 weeks into those servers being live, myself and Alenia were on this very podcast going, I've never noticed it more blatantly in my life how insidious the auction house usage is by gold sellers. You know, I was pointing out a number of items where I'm just like, we're 2 weeks into this server's life cycle, and you can blatantly see people posting very desirable items at ungodly amounts of money when people have nothing close to that amount of money, and it's setting a mark. It's setting a bar going like, get used to this server. If you want this item, you will have to pay. And in order to pay, you will have to buy gold. There are no ifs or buts about it. And I know, Tito, historically, we like to do the old, you know, but theoretically, people could go out and farm that gold, and you know it's not a silly amount of money. If you play 20 hours a day, it's more than achievable. Blah blah blah. But realistically, I just felt like that term of market manipulation was being underlined really heavy-handedly from the outset of the server, and there is such big money now, truly big money now involved in the gold buying and selling industry, that these guys weren't fucking around with anniversary servers, and they've just said, you're either playing our game or you're not fucking playing at all. And here we are 6 months later down the track, where by them setting the stage early straight off the bat, we now get to where we are, where absolutely all the comments on the subreddit seem to back up your theory, Tito, where this isn't the fact that people aren't going out and necessarily that no one is going out and picking Black Lotus. No, they are. It's just that they happen to be bots or gold buyers and sellers, and they're holding on to their stock. And there's blatant, monopoly collaboration here in terms of setting market prices and only drip feeding it out to the community in order to keep that gold buying going because it's so ridiculously overpriced. I can't see any other situation going on. Like, that's 100% what's happening. This is a real life cartel making real life dollars off of a silly in-game item, and it's working. Agree?
Yeah. It's I would be interested to see if Blizzard have any data around that. Like how many Lotus are in banks or whatever stuff like that. But all I know is that early on, before the Lotus changes, there are some really sweaty guilds that had 1,000 flasks already in their guild bank ready to go for the server and stuff like that. And that's just from people farming. So I know the supply is not an issue, but it is hoarding. It's absolute. People are hoarding, that's for sure. And I really do think that the whether it's the gold sellers or the botters or whatever, but someone is constantly just buying everything off the AH and reposting it.
Yes, and
double, triple, quadruple prices.
The second you post a Lotus at I don't know, as little as 10% below market value, it gets swooped up straight away and just by the cartel.
Yeah, pretty much. And another factor is there's a couple of new boosts that do produce a lot of raw gold that are a lot faster than there ever was, and the LBRS boost comes to mind, and I think there is another one in Diamall as well, where there's just they're a lot more efficient in terms of raw gold per minute than any other farm. So there's also that much gold. It's easy to make gold in order to just do this blatant market manipulation.
Right. So just to set the stage a bit more for if people haven't played Anniversary Realms or haven't played Classic for a while, what this all means in terms of what you have to put in to get, this item that is so desirable, being a flask for raiding. 400 golds. The argument comes up, Tito, and sorry, I'll just hammer Tito a bit more. I'm not hammering him, obviously. I'm asking him questions, but we'll go with Tito a bit longer before I get to you other guys. The argument comes up, Tito, where people go, oh, yeah, okay, it's expensive, but, with the inflation and with what the market is doing on anniversary servers, hey, guys, turns out when you actually go out and farm shit, you sell it for more. So it's actually just, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's in line with what we did on 2019 servers. It's just, if you go out and farm some ore or some herbs, hey, you'll earn more money and that Black Lotus will become affordable now. And people push back to that, saying that's not actually sort of how it works or what's going on. What do you say to that? That yeah, they're more expensive, but you can make more money from your raw materials.
It's true. It is true. I've never been a big farmer. I've always done bare minimum farming. Being a warrior player, just kind of because it sucked, and just got what I need. Always been the last person in the guild to get epic mount. But I'm playing a mage this time around, and I've just doing Diamall East runs. I've got 4,500 gold, and I've got enough consumes that I can make from guild crafters that I don't need to use AH really. It's all kind of in-house. But yeah, you can absolutely do it. Rand is playing a lot. He just does loops of Ashara. There's so many layers. He just does loops, picks up 1 million dream foil. Everyone seems to be using flasks, so these dream foil are selling for, 3-4 gold each. So in a lunch break, you can go around and get 50, 100 dream foil. There's a couple 100 gold, you're set.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at, though. And I know it's hard for you to answer because you don't play on Night Slayer. But it's very, very hard to discern the difference here between, are we talking about and I do lean towards this first option more than the other, but we'll get into it. Are we talking about more of a situation where the item truly is unaffordable even for the player putting in the time to earn money? Or are we simply dealing with a changing player base that is done with farming, never wants to go out and spend a minute of their time earning any gold, and just loves to bitch about how the fact that this product isn't free?
There's definitely a potential of that. A lot of the people who are playing Anniversary are people who just want to play Classic, and they just want to play the raids of Classic, and they just want to PvP, or they're waiting for their raid to come out that they wanted to redo. Because a lot of the other general players are playing SoD, and it looks fucking fun, to be honest. But there are people playing other versions of the game. So the people who are on Anniversary, to me, it's not the same. We're not dealing with the same player base. So yeah, there is possibly a big chance of that being the case.
All right. Guys, let's get everyone else involved here. I want to hear all your thoughts on that little back and forth between Tito and I. I'm sure you've all somewhat heard the news about what's going on with Black Lotus on Anniversary servers. And many of you many of you probably aren't playing Anniversary servers because you did it in 2019, and many of us didn't elect to quote unquote do it again, but some are. Knowing what you know and what you're hearing, and like you said, DC Green throughout the comparison of the SoD economy versus the Anniversary economy. How do you feel? Yeah, how do you feel about the relationship? Well, actually, no. Stop that. Let's go to the market manipulation point first up. How many of you are either agree? Well, how do I put this? Who agrees or disagrees? Just first in, best dressed, that this item is being dealt with differently in 2025, and there might be some, insidious behavior going on here.
I think there's absolutely insidious behavior.
From
It's either that, or it's just more. Well, it's either
who's being insidious. Sorry, who's being insidious? Let's just
okay. First off, all WoW players are fucking insidious. We're all degenerates at some
well,
point.
what did Josh mean by it?
I mean that there are people who aren't really players of this game that, run bots and run buying and selling operations just to make money off of the weird WoW players' relationship with Black Lotus.
Oh,
okay, but to me it sounded like you were implying that Blizz is purposely not fixing it because they're in cahoots with the cartels.
Oh, no, that wasn't that.
That sounds insidious to
Look,
me.
if you infer... I don't know where the fuck you got
Collusion.
that from.
I
don't know where the fuck you got that from.
Insidious is a strong term. That's what that implies.
To be
fact
fair...
that we're selling things on the AH is not insidious.
To be fair, a lot of people are throwing that conspiracy theory out there, DC Green. They think this is well within Blizzard's interest to do this. Blizzard's in on it. This drives interest in the game. It drives... Blizzard wants people buying gold, blah, blah, blah. I don't subscribe to that, but the theory is out there. Sorry, Zim, you were saying?
I would say there are people in Blizzard who are definitely on that train, but not necessarily the whole of Blizzard, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I just think it's a more ramped up version of 2019 because, bots were rampant in 2019, but I think now there's so much more information out there because this is essentially the third time we've done a flat classic. And so look at Trade Skill Master. Everybody and their mother has guides on how to flip the auction house. And I'm sure it's just people flipping and flipping and flipping and just, increasing that. And the bots on that server don't help. Like I switched over to my 22 Warrior on Night Slayer, and the only thing I saw in LFG was wanting to sell summon to here, wanting to sell boost here. It's people who don't play the game that are running the market.
And what that upsets me, to be honest. I actually get genuinely upset about how big time the money behind gold buying has become. And that's why, and I know, Tito, that this has ruffled your feathers a little bit in the past when I do shift, a fair bit of blame on the player base, where I've historically said, yes, Blizzard is to blame for not cracking down on this more. But I've never enjoyed it when people absolve the player base of blame. As it's the old, it's not my fault for doing drugs. They're so addictive and tasty. You know what I mean? I still do shelve a lot of the blame on the players, going and this is not an uncommon take, to be your obsession with weirdly being the best or whatever at the game, or getting your 99 pass, driving you to spend X amount of dollars on it per month that you swore you would never do because MMOs shouldn't have microtransactions. And yet you'll do it to ensure that like you're near the top of the heap. And people preying on that weird need of players really bothers me, that it's become such a, you know, a growth industry, if you will, that there are cunts that couldn't fucking spell World of Warcraft that are making $100,000 a year selling gold to its players.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I just think that's not a practical or a possible route to go down to change anything. But you're 100% correct that it is on the players as well as the game devs. But
so this is what I'm getting at here now is like, realistically, how many hours am I putting into farming now to afford one single flask? Like, it's 400 gold. I'm guessing at this phase of the game, people are probably, I mean, you could tell me, Tito, people are pulling in what, like 80 to 100 gold an hour? I don't know. What is it?
No, you'd be. Yeah, again, it's hard for me to say exactly. I don't know how populated Ashara is on layer 4 on Night Slayer
Yeah.
necessarily. So it is a bit tough to say, but you can always. I like to just use Dire Maul East as a baseline lasher runs, because any class can kill lasher packs with a bit of effort, or you can skip the lasher packs, do a 5-minute herb run, and walk out of there with, you know, in your 5 runs, which might take you 25 to 45 minutes, depending on what you do, you can walk out with a stack of dream foil and a couple of Grom's blood and you know, 6 ghost mushrooms. So say if you call them all 2 gold 50 each, so you're getting what, 70 or 35 herbs, maybe 25 to 35 herbs in 5 runs. Times that by 2.5. Yeah, so maybe around the 90 gold mark, 80 gold mark.
Yeah, so let's be generous and let's say 80 gold. So let's say basically you got to go farm for 5 hours to afford your flask for the week, right? And that's,
no, well, not necessarily. Oh, yeah, if you're buying the Lotus, yeah, I guess so.
yeah, if you're buying the Lotus, right? And that's just the flask. Obviously, there's other consumables on top of that as well. So I don't know. Let's say you got to go out and do 7 hours of farming a week to afford your raid consumables for the week. Would that be a fair sort of ballpark figure to throw out there?
I'm just checking the market in Night Slayer, and actually there's such a vast discrepancy between OS and Night Slayer. I can't say necessarily what's true or not, because Dreamfoil on Night Slayer is 77 silver each, whereas on Oceanic it's between 3 and 4 gold each, purely because of the player base and farmers.
Yeah, so that's huge.
It's really hard for me to say, but also that just means to me just how much market manipulation and hoarding there is going on.
So that's crazy, because then what that says to me, Tito, is that other raw materials are still moving basically at 2019 to 2021 prices, yet the Black Lotus in and of itself is 4 times more expensive.
Not 4 times more expensive. Black Lotus was, you know,
isn't it about 100 gold?
150, 200 gold.
Oh, okay. Then. I thought it was about 100. All right.
No, not in 2019. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but my memory of Black Lotus was it was completely unaffordable. 200 gold each. People were doing the same thing, just a mafia hoarding it, transferring it from server to server with stacks of Lotus. What was being picked on the server was not going on that AH necessarily.
Either way, long story short, the picture I'm painting here is that this version of this game, due to the market in its current state, is asking of the player about, 6 to 8 hours worth of farming if they would like to be fully jacked up heading into their raid for the week, right? And this
that's kind of loaded.
Yeah.
In what way, DC Green? Do you think I'm off?
Yeah, because I don't know. I have a different, perspective on stuff like this, but I think that when you're in an economy that like there's stuff, like if you're sitting there like I need to make gold, like how do you decide what to farm? Like, you don't just go like, oh, I'm going to go do the 7 to 8 hour farm. No, you go on the auction house, you look at the commodities that you feel like that today, the price of that's what I'm going to farm, because those things are worth 25 gold each. Maybe it's like Essence of Air or something like that. And then you'll go do that. You don't just resign yourself to like some.
I don't know. You say that. Yeah, I was going to say, Tito, tell me if I'm right. You say that, DC Green, yet typically the player base has always defaulted to, yes, honey, I'll go do my jump runs.
Yeah, and look, you say that, and that's true about Essence of Air, but you can farm 2 hours and get no drops of Essence of Air. It's not the same.
Sure, I mean, like, it's the same with any kind of farming, right? Is like you're running the risk of like even investing the time. But my point is that like these economies, like, they present opportunities by having items set at certain prices, so you can increase your efficiency of like gold per hour by going and farming like hot commodity items. So the idea that you would resign yourself to like farming a thing that's going to take you 8 hours to reach your goal, that just seems like outlandish to me. I feel like if you just search the auction house, you could find a better farm.
What you're saying,
and then you can take advantage of the high prices.
But what you're saying what you're saying in theory works. But I think the player base is probably over years and years of tried and true practice has basically determined that the sure thing drop rate of something like a jump run trumps shooting for the lottery, like Tito is saying, if you know what I mean.
I mean, like, again, I'm not even trying to say like you need to shoot for the lottery. I think that like what I'm describing is like pretty basic. And like, again, if you're just going to be like, oh, well, this is things change over time. I don't know if you know this. So the thing that people did like 6 years ago that was good, it might not be good now or as good. So, it just kind of like, because someone raised the issue, it might have been you, Josh, that like, or Tito, that like, because the economy is juiced, that means that the things that you sell, you can sell for more. And it's like, yeah, you just need to take advantage of that. This doesn't alleviate the fact that like there might be manipulation going on in the Black Lotus market. But, if people are jacking up the prices of things, you just need to figure out what those things are and then go farm them for yourselves and then take advantage of the economy that they've created for you.
That's fair.
That assumes that the people are actually buying stuff with the gold they hoard, though.
You can do that.
We're talking about farming and able to afford something. I mean, they're not farming, right? They're just buying gold. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm referring to, though. It's what I mean is, if we have a regular player base, they will spend and hoard gold depending on what they need, right? Like, that's how players work. That's why we have gold, right? But if someone, but when it comes to the Dream, for example, like, people are still trying to farm that stuff, even though the value has gone down. And why has the value gone down? Because people still need the same amount of materials, right? Because the people who have the gold don't need to buy it because they are not actually spending it on that stuff. Like, they're just selling it on, and if someone doesn't buy it, just hold on to it. You lose nothing. There's no risk to just holding on to it. Sure, your account might get banned, but that takes forever, so who cares?
So are you talking about people like constraining the supply on purpose? Because I feel like now we're getting into a different discussion.
Yeah, I mean, that is what's happening, right? Like, otherwise we wouldn't have these prices.
People are free to do that. People are free to hoard items.
Let me drag it. Let me drag it back. You're right, JC. Great. The point I'm ultimately trying to make, and I'm happy to be told I'm wrong on this one, but what I'm trying to figure out is how many hours of farming is the game asking of the player if they want to be fully jacked up going into the raid? Because like we were talking about in the Discord a few hours ago, DC Green, and the modern which we've talked about many times on the show as well, the modern MMO players' reluctance to engage with the content outside of raid time, the dying notion, the dying notion of farming. And I know that is heresy to some of you listeners out there who started listening to this podcast on the basis that how good is old school classic MMO gaming. And, I'm with you. It's certainly got an appeal, but it would be remiss of us to not acknowledge that the vast majority of the player base now seems to be pushing back against the concept of farming gold, that players are sort of saying, no, I want to do other things with my time as opposed to farming gold. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it. I'm just saying that's clearly what is happening. Now,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so totally. What I'm getting at is, where is the line in the sand? What's the point of no return, or the fucking so-called, crossing of the crossing of the Rubicon? Sorry, I'm going to go a bit more highbrow, DC Green, because I'm a wanker. What's that figure for classic players now? When you say you must farm X amount of hours to afford your consumables for the week, is the number as low as 1, where they go, mate, farming? I don't do that. Fuck off. That's for losers. I buy gold. Or is it, no, I could do 3 or 4 hours, but if you're asking any more than that from me, you're pushing the friendship?
I don't know, because to me it's all playing the game, and that's what you want to be doing anyways, right? That's why you like this game, is because you like playing it, and that's like part of the game is making money. So I always feel like these arguments where it's like, why do I have to do this thing? It's like, well, you're playing the game. Like, what you know, don't you like playing the game? And then, I mean, like, I literally had a discussion with someone in my guild who was like, rating is 99% of the game, and anything else that isn't rating falls into that 1%. And I was just like, dude, that's like the dumbest way to look at this game.
I thought,
if
to be fair,
I thought like 10% or 15% or something like that, and like 80% of the game is like outside of raids, but people just don't like play the game that way anymore.
To be fair, I thought, maybe I read you wrong, mate. I thought that was your take as well.
No, I mean, like I just said, like I think rating is like 15%, maybe 20% of the game if we want to get like into the higher areas. But then like 80% is like Azeroth and what you do in it and what it can provide to you, and you know, engaging with different like social communities and you know, other aspects of the game like the economy and stuff like that. That all goes into it. Like, we're in a virtual world, so to say that like only one section of the world is everything and then everything else can be discarded is just like silly. So right? Like, there's a lot of stuff to do in this game. It's a giant game. There's 2 continents in this game. I don't know if you knew that. People that are listening know that there's literally 2 of them. Like the one that you're on, there's another one that's the same size across the ocean. There's a lot of shit for you to do in it.
So what I'd like to know is, and this is for everyone, you know, suffice to say, it seems we've answered the question, or I'm certainly hinting towards the answer, but I want to know what your thoughts are. Like, is a 400 gold flask on a classic server where, like Tito says, prices for herbs are in the like 75 to 80 silver range if you're selling, is this a completely untenable situation? Like, is it like, yes, like you now must buy gold if you want to compete?
It is. I think
let someone else talk, because I'm not playing on Mercury.
Yeah, while we've been talking, I'm just on an AH website that just has all the prices for Night Slayer, just so I can get a good idea of it. And in this case, I think it really is. I think the amount of manipulation going on Night Slayer, because everything is cheap. Even ghost mushrooms are 60 silver, where they normally are a bit harder to get, and they're up around, you know, 1 or 2 gold mark. So on the Oceanic server, everything's fair. Everything's worth more, and you can buy more. And I mean, and Lotuses are a lot cheaper. So Lotus, even Edge Masters on Night Slayer are 1,500 gold, which is completely a fair price for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Lotus is not in ratio. Lotus is so far and above everything. It has to be blatant manipulation. Okay. Maybe there is that many bots under the ground just grabbing Lotuses every 15 minutes.
So
I need to ask a few friends, but it seems just completely absurd, and it's just the Lotus that is blown out of the water and nothing else.
So here's the big question, which I've been leading up to this whole time. This is the crux of this conversation that we're having here today, where I'm like, and I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to get on my fucking high horse that I know, you know, a lot of you have somewhat fairly accused me of in the past. You know, fucking here comes old pious Josh to tell you you're all cunts for playing the game the way you play the game. But my genuine, honest question is, given all the setup that we've just been through and told you all about the prices and what's going on, if the game now, albeit you've been put in this situation by bad faith actors, but if the game now asks of you to break the rules in order to play it the way you want to play it, what does one do? You know, it's a fucking lame twist on the old stealing the loaf of bread to feed the family conundrum. Problem here is you're not feeding the family, you're feeding your ego. So I genuinely want to know, and this comes back, DC Green, to our spirited conversations in the past about, do you really, you know, you hate it when people, dickheads like me, say, do you really need to raid with this item? How about you just try raiding without it for once? When you've been forced, so to speak, to break TOS, you now must buy gold in order to engage with the content in a fun fashion. What does one do?
Okay, so I don't know if I should be the first one in, but best dressed, I guess. So as I was saying before, I don't play on the anniversary realm, so I haven't had to actually like exist in this environment where I have to shell out maybe like 900 gold a week to get 2 flasks to do a raid. Hopefully it's just 1 because the content's really easy, right? So I don't really know, but I would imagine that if that is the current market situation, that there's a way to take it to your advantage, like, you know, use it to your advantage, which is what I usually try and give as a solution. You know, if Lotuses are selling on the Age for 370 gold, you just sit in trade chat and try and buy them for 300 gold, 325, and then you just list them. And if they're getting sold instantly because of the cartel, you're making 50 gold every time you do that. You just have to do that however many times till, you know, that's how I would look at it. And then that's what I would just spend all my time doing until, like, you know, like, it's like when you said earlier that, like, you can't believe that the cartels are using the AH. It's like the AH is like a price multiplier. Like, everyone should use the AH. Anything that you have in your bags is worth more money when you put it on the AH.
Oh no, I can believe it. I'm just more shocked at the amount of group organization that's now gone into it.
Josh, I've got an answer to your question.
Yeah.
So you're posing it as whether you should farm or whether you should buy gold.
Not sorry, just let me just refine that. Not so much whether you should farm or whether you're buying gold. What I'm positing is, I was sort of pushing the conversation in this direction of we've ruled out, the player base is telling us that we've ruled out farming gold as an option. They're saying no. The game now asks too much of my personal time in order to afford what is an optional item, or, you know, not so optional to them, but you know what I mean. And they're saying, I have now been forced to a quote unquote life of crime by the game. So what do I do now?
I'm saying that there is a third option that a lot of people have been pursuing.
Go on.
Is to farm the gold buyers. People are selling services like never before. I've been spending a lot of time on Night Slayer, and that's been the biggest culture shock, is the amount of services being provided, from Hodge runs to anything you could imagine. Just yesterday, I saw a hunter advertising to help other hunters complete their epic class quest bow of kiting mobs. The most fun quest in vanilla. He's offering to do it for somebody else. Like, the level of servicification is absurd.
Yes.
Because that's the best way to get gold without buying gold, is by taking it out of the hands of the gold buyers by providing services.
Let me throw a real monkey wrench in the argument here, because I love that you've raised that, Icono. Farm the gold buyers. Create paid services that traditionally or historically would not be paid for, but these fucking idiots have so much money they'll just pay for anything that, doesn't cost them time. On that note, tell me, and I'm more than happy to be shouted down by you guys and told I'm a fucking idiot for saying this, but on that note, I'm not saying that you're wrong for doing that. You are absolutely committing no crime by farming the gold buyers. I'll create a service. That's great. It just reminds me of a certain little thing called GDKP, where that's where the problems spawn. Because once you monetize and create a service that traditionally didn't exist, and we're now farming these fucking cheating cunts for their gold, and the wealth is being spread amongst the non-TOS breakers of us as well, doesn't that just feed the beast? And now more and more gold must be bought in order to afford these new services that have been created by the non-criminals. Do you know what I mean?
I'll say something here, and I think that's a great point that you raised, Icon. I completely forgot about that, but people are selling Hodge for like 800 gold and shit like that. It's absolutely the way to do it. The difference there is that the market is not all correlated currently. It is just Lotus that is blown out of the water. So by increasing the prices on other people who are buying gold, you're not raising the whole market for everything. It's purely Lotus that's being manipulated. So no, I don't think that's a problem.
Well, but the problem is that the player base has clearly said, for whatever reason, that all of them can't play without Lotus. So, like, while we can sit here and say, "Oh, it's just Lotus," I mean, it's been deemed a mandatory item for 95% of the player base.
I kind of take issue with the idea that players feel that it's mandatory. Like, again, I kind of made this point the last time we talked about this, but I think people should be allowed to demand that they have access to things that are in the game that like give your player power. So I don't think that they're making this this argument out of like, oh, the raids necessitate it. I think that they're making it from like their civil rights as a player, essentially. That like I am a player of this game. I participate in this game. I support this company, and I should have equal access to these things. And in this situation, Blizzard has failed to mediate a situation that is like obviously gotten out of control. I think we can all agree that there's nothing that compares to like what's going on with Black Lotus. So to kind of like use the Black Lotus and as like a blanket argument for like all the gold buying stuff, I think that's like a little.
And you and I,
not as productive, but like of course they're related.
You and I will go back and forth on this one, DC. And please, guys, John, I'll throw it to you in a second. All you guys jump in as well. I'll say, and I hate doing analogies because I'm so susceptible. What's the word I'm looking for? Susceptible to straw man. Yeah, susceptible to straw man arguments here, and I'm not trying to do that. But please tell me if I have. It's just when I hear that, DC Green, I still think what you're saying implies a sense of a mandatory nature to the item, because you say, like, I hear what you're saying in terms of like, hey.
No, because I'm not saying you have to have it.
No, but you have personally, you're saying it's like a civil right, it's an item in game, I deserve the right to get it, and I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, by you saying that to yourself, you subjectively and personally have created an aura of a mandatory nature around this item, if that makes sense.
No,
I can word that
I don't
better.
See that correlation.
Okay. I kind of bring it back to the car thing.
There's a correlation between it being mandatory and you having rights to it.
Well, I bring it back to like I said, I'm wary of the straw man thing, but I bring it back to like the car thing, which is like, if other people have Ferraris, I should have a Ferrari too. Okay, well, do you have the money for one? No, but I should get to have one because other people have one, and I refuse to drive until I get my own Ferrari. Well,
I don't think that's a good analogy.
It's maybe not, but I've created personally a mandatory nature around this item. I refuse to drive until I get this particular car because other people can have one. It's my civil right to have one. It's an item that exists in the world.
Because if the car got you to work like in a safer way or like more faster or something like that, then like I'd say there's validity to your argument. But you're arguing completely from vanity. Like flasks provably make the content easier. They make the raid smoother. You have to use less other consumables. Like you have to use less mana potions.
The problem here is
if you have a flask of distilled wisdom on, etc.
Yeah. But I'll stop you there because then it comes down to your definitions of what's going on, because we're going to get in an argument here over whether or not the raid content is still cleared with or without flasks. And I say yes, and the car analogy actually,
of course it is.
I think the car analogy becomes more relevant because it is just about speed now and how quickly you're getting to work in the Ferrari. Like with the flask, you're just getting to a destination you would absolutely have gotten to anyway otherwise, just at a quicker time.
Yeah, so are we debating whether or not flasks are a luxury item? Because like I would say that yeah, they are, but that doesn't mean that like they now have to fall into this weird category where like because they're suffering from the problem they are now that they're like mandatory.
Well, but this will let me put a pin in that. I'm not ducking that. I just want to get these other guys involved as well. John, how are you, man?
Yeah, of course.
You've jumped in. Have you something to say on all this?
I did. Yeah, because I mean, well, when you say like it's not mandatory, I mean, don't most, like, even pug groups require that? Because even like the alleged, like, semi-hardcore are going to say, no, you have to have your world buffs, you have to have your flasks, you have to have all your consume. So it's not really. I mean, it's definitely not an option. The other thing that you're
I take issue with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Take
not
issue
sure.
with the
I
stream
don't know
statements.
I don't know what the Night Slayer pug scene is like, but that may be the meta currently. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
to say that you can't find a pug that doesn't care, like, I just don't like extreme statements like that, because you can definitely find a group of people that don't care if you don't have flasks and don't have world.
Yeah, I think you can pug without it.
How long does it take that?
So therefore, it's not mandatory. So you're gonna have to try and set that up a different way.
Well, it's a different frame of mind. It's not mandatory for the pug, because the pug just wants to get through it and doesn't give a fuck. They're just casuals who need their items. But it is mandatory for anyone who's semi-serious.
You join
about
an enterprise where it's mandatory.
Who's no. I disagree. What I'm saying is, fuck. How do I put this? This is a tough one with you, DC Green. You're a tough fucking.
Because I'm right. So
No,
you're just gonna have a hard time knocking this
no.
wall down. It's pretty sturdy.
I think you guys just have different opinions on it. That's all it is. I don't know if there's an objective truth.
Flasks are mandatory. That's not an opinion. That's like a fact. They're not mandatory.
Well,
That's
then what?
Josh's opinion.
You're in terms of. There is no tablet with the words etched in stone, thou must raid with a flask. You are correct in that regard. Yeah. Very good. Well done. 1 point for you. However, why the fuck don't you raid without one?
Because I'm in a guild.
Because you deemed it to be subjectively and personally mandatory.
Yeah. It's perceived to be mandatory in certain.
That's what I'm getting at. He subjectively said, I will never raid without this item because I need it. Hence, to you, it is mandatory.
Yeah, so are we talking about like what matters to me personally, or are we talking about the broader player base at large? Because like that's what I thought we were talking about.
But what I'm getting at, is you. You are the broader raider. You are the broader raider base.
I'd go out and say a majority of people who raid request you have flasks. A majority, not all. A majority.
Sure, I don't have it. I don't take any issue with that.
So
where am I wrong? And then I can like address it because now I'm confused.
I think there's not a wrong here. I mean, there's just different arguments around what's affecting how this game is playing currently, and it can be played both ways. But they're not mandatory, yet they are perceived to be in a lot of groups.
I agree. I think we're both right, but I think you're struggling to sort of see where I'm coming at this one from, DC Green. But let me reframe it into sort of this angle where what I'm getting at is, again, I want to bring it back to the gold buying and the TOS breaking angle, because
I think a better example, by the way, is steroids. If you were going to go from the Ferrari to because flasks are clearly something that enhances your performance.
That's fair. Steroids, yeah, go on with that.
Well, I mean, I think the reason I was having confusion with the point that you're trying to make is the analogy that you made earlier about the car is just a
but I said that was shit. Yeah,
point of luxury, rather than if you were taking steroids. Like steroids would also be a luxury, but they do give you a noticeable performance enhancement. And so then if you're a guy in a regular league and you have like a colleague that uses steroids and he outperforms you, you're going to feel like this is mandatory in order for me to be on his level. But they're not mandatory. Like steroids aren't mandatory in that situation, just like flasks aren't.
That's right. I would disagree with you on that.
I don't think it's a luxury item. Sorry, John, you go. I was just going to say I'll come back to it. I really don't think it's luxury.
I mean, even with a performance enhancing thing, there's no way in fuck that a guy like Jose Canseco is ever going to make the major leagues without steroids. So for him, it is mandatory.
I think he made it. He made it without steroids. He needed it for the second half of his career.
He would never have. He never would have stayed.
We're having disagreements on baseball within disagreements on
I know. This is insane, right? Because I mean, here's a lot of people are very passionate about it. It all still boils down to the core issue is gold is incredibly powerful, especially in vanilla. It's even more, and acquiring that gold is even more difficult and more time consuming. And yeah, you're running into people who are going to say and when you say, well, you can just go farm Black Lotus. Well, no, I can't, because if I care about performing well, I'm going to choose engineering as one of my professions because, well, that gives me more buttons that I can push and gives me more throughput. And then if you're a caster, you're probably going to have to be a tailor. So how do I go pick these flowers again? Oh, now you want me to go spend 7 to 10 days leveling another character that's doing nothing more.
No, just leverage those professions that you have to make money so you can afford the lotuses.
No, just buy gold and go to a booster.
Well,
just make grenades, make thorium widgets. If you're a tailor, make bags. Like these professions don't just sit there like useless.
Yeah, but here's the thing, DC. What I'm getting at, people aren't doing that. So this is what I'm trying to sort of drill in on in terms.
Yeah,
of,
I know. That's why I'm saying
hard.
it, because people are too stupid to know that that's a thing that you can do with this profession that like seemingly only benefits you in raid. But guess what? Outside of raid, it can also benefit you.
I think I think they do. I think they do know. They just don't care anymore.
Oh, do they?
People know. You think people don't know how to make gold in Classic WoW?
I don't know. We're treating them like they're all like idiots that think that like the only way to get gold in this game is to buy it from a Chinese person, and it's like, literally everything in the game like is designed to like put money.
I don't think anyone's been arguing that they don't know how to make gold. These cunts know how to make gold. They just won't lift the finger anymore to do it because. Number one, the price of the item they're trying to buy. And number two, like we said, they're just getting over the concept of farming altogether. It's not that fucking a lot of like the guides are out there. And if they don't know already, like the information is there. People know how to make money in this game. But what I'm getting at is just back to the luxury item. I was sort of grabbing you on you deeming Black Lotus to be a luxury item, which on the face of it, in a world where nothing had happened in the way of, gold buyers, monopolizing it and all that shit, I'd agree with you. But like, I'm just sort of saying, if we now have an item that by all reports, many, many players are more than willing to break the rules to obtain, can we really still deem it a luxury item?
I mean, I think that it is by definition of luxury item. So you're gonna have to do a lot of work to like undeclare it as a luxury item and prove that to me.
Well, like I've come back to the whole.
All potions are a luxury item.
But like again, in the world of shit analogies, coming back to the old fucking stealing the loaf of bread to feed the family. If you're willing to break the law, so to speak, to obtain the item, how is it not a necessity to them?
I mean, it's like you accused me of making it personally mandatory. They've done that, so that's their problem. That's their cross to bear. So the reality doesn't reflect that.
Yeah,
just because they think it.
But that sounds like you're agreeing with me that they have deemed it personally mandatory and thus not a luxury item.
Well, that doesn't not make it a luxury item. It still is a luxury item. It doesn't matter if they've all.
Well, a luxury item is generally something you don't need. You can live without.
Yeah, I know, and we've already defined it as something you don't need. Everyone in here agrees that you don't need consumables to clear the raid content, correct? So therefore, it's a luxury.
But yet they won't raid without it. This is the loop we're going on.
You're right, DC, but we're talking about the problem that exists based on people's perception. So how do you solve that problem? You can't just say, get over it, dickheads, because that hasn't worked. The problem still exists.
I don't need clothes to go to the grocery store, but I'll still get arrested if I show up naked. So it's kind of, I'm picking up where you're throwing down. Like, no, you don't need that.
I don't know if that analogy works necessarily. I see what you're trying to do, but like, so I won't get stuck on it.
We need a separate segment, analogy police.
Analogy police. I think the problem does exist, and something does need to be done about it because it's clearly a problem that's affecting players.
Yeah, I think
whether you think
Blizzard
it is or
needs
not.
to do something about it.
What would you recommend that they do?
They should just do what they did for Season of Discovery and just make it drop off like regular stuff so that people can't just like monopolize the spawn.
Well, as Tito said, would that solve the problem?
I think that the thing that would solve the problem is not necessarily that, but is the alchemy change. Making multiple flasks from Lotus would affect it. Because you've got one Lotus. If you were to guarantee 2 flasks from every Lotus, then Lotus would stay the same because it's just being manipulated, and flasks would half. And if you've got one flask crafter in your guild, you're exempt from the market. You just have to get 1 Lotus, and you're done for 2 weeks with your flasks, right? So that would be the solution, not the herb side of things. I don't necessarily
it seems to me
want
like
that to be in the game, but that would be the solution, I think.
It sounds to me like you need to put Lotuses in the hands of more players so that they have agency in determining the market price of it. As of right now, that's consolidated into a group of nefarious individuals that like make it ridiculous for everybody else. So I think that like whatever you do, you just have to make more of them be accessible by players that don't have this their main priority is making gold so that they can sell it for real money. That would go and if you want to increase the amount of potions and shit that get made after that's fine too. But I think the main thing is that seemingly regular people can't get access to it in enough abundance to where they never have a chance to determine the price for themselves based on what they would deem reasonable.
Do we know anyone playing Night Slayer? Because I mean, Lotus is just it is quite easy to get these days. Maybe there is that many bots under the ground. That would be the investigation required, I think.
I've spent a lot of time on Night Slayer. I've never seen a Lotus.
Have you been herbing in the last 2 weeks?
No, not actively, but I have been PvPing around Lotus spawns. There's always a lot of players in that area. Like, it goes beyond botting. There's people
picking,
using hunters to scout. It's a very active zone.
Yeah. That's EPL? Or like Blasted Lands? Not Blasted Lands, fucking Burning Steps?
Burning Steps.
Yeah.
But all over the place. It's the layers, even when there's a lot of layers, it always feels crowded in these Lotus battle zones.
Yeah, okay. It must just be the sweaty guilds just going fucking all out and hoarding all the Lotus. Something along those lines.
I think it's the foreign gold buyers, to be honest with you. But
yeah, probably a bit of both.
But this is again, and I'm not trying to pick on you, DC Green. I'm more sort of because I know you and I are on opposite ends of this one.
I think this is a great conversation. I don't feel picked.
I've fucking hard as. Don't worry about it. I agree. But I want to ask, what I'm getting at is, and I don't think you'll agree to this, but the road I'm leading you down is
what do you want? Yeah, you are kind of pulling me along. What are you trying to get at?
Yeah, I'm glad you've picked up on that. Where I'm going is your point that you and I have clashed over in the past about you take great issue with, again, fuckwits like me saying, how about you just don't raid with this item? And you say that that's an unacceptable conclusion to draw. That's not for us to say, this item is, like you say, kind of like a right. It's more fun when the game is played with it and all that stuff, and I accept that. But what price point would this item have to get to before you do even remotely consider, maybe I won't buy this gold this week for this item. Maybe this has gotten a little ridiculous, my monthly expenditure on a pixelated item to improve my performance in a game. I'm just sort of saying, I still feel like there is merit to the point that gets shouted down by sweats of just stop buying it. Just please stop feeding this machine that is clearly preying on fucking nerds worldwide who need 99 passes. There is almost like a black economy, a dark economy that we are constantly fueling because of our need to feed our egos. How about we just stop? And people get really, really upset, to be fair, including yourself, mate, when that proposition is thrown out there.
Sure. I would say that the reason that it upsets me is because it's not a viable long-term solution. And I think that that's kind of what we should be spending our energy discussing. It's of course, it's a short-term solution. If you're oh, the Lotuses are too expensive this week, I'm not going to buy them. That's totally within your right to do. It's totally feasible. It will aid in, I don't know if it'll aid in solving it, but it does. That's why I take issue with it, because it's not there shouldn't be any problems in the game where your long-term solution is just not engaging with that part of the game. And at the end of the day, it's not your problem to fix, right? It's Blizzard. Blizzard should be the one having a fucking Discord call right now. What the fuck do we do about Black Lotuses? I don't know why we're sitting here fucking trying to figure it out for them. That's their cross to bear. So that's really the issue that I take with that sentiment in general, is that it doesn't really solve anything long term. Sure, it might get you through a week of not doing it, but at the end of the day, if you're a player that only plays the game to parse, like Arcos or like myself or something like that, you unfortunately have to figure out in right now solution to like this thing. And like I said, I can't personally comment. I haven't been in this kind of situation before where I've been faced with a consumable that costs, tenfold the amount of all the other consumables that you need to bring. So I don't personally know how I would try and unravel that. I mean, I imagine that I would just try and brute force my way to like lots of gold through, doing my own flipping of the auction house and stuff that I normally do to make money. But there's a good chance that because of like the exorbitant price of this item that I would even eventually run to a point where I'm like, I'm not making enough money every week to keep up with this, in which I'd be like banging on the drums for Blizzard to fix it for me, because there's nothing really you can do about it. And I don't think that the solution is boycotting. I think that we know that like gamers, they can't do boycotts and et cetera, et cetera. And also, as we all know, the solution is right there. Like all you have to do is buy gold to do it. And I think that a lot of people are they don't really see. I think Blizzard has conditioned the player base to buy gold with the WoW token through retail. They completely endorse that. It's RMT, just by this, a different name. And so I think that like a lot of people just are like, whatever, man, this is just the game that I play. Like I swipe my credit card every week, $10 to buy this stupid thing, but it lets me play the game the way that I want to play it. And that's just, so, it's a fine sentiment to have. But again, it's like, I feel like the whole reason we talk about this is to come to solutions, and it's not a solution. And unfortunately, the only people that can deliver this solution is Blizzard. So
you're not wrong. Blizzard did sit down in Discord call and like double or triple the Black Lotus spawn. So they it's not that they're doing nothing. They did try. It's just that the Lotus Mafia was just completely able to turn it up and absolutely take control of it anyway. So yeah, if they want to try and fix it for your average player, they need if they add it to herb spawns. If they're going to add it to herb spawns like everyone was suggesting, you need to have it as a chance from dropping in Die More Least as well, right? That takes away the ability to control out of the hands of the mafias, because you can get it in an isolated single player environment. But that would be the way to do it. But the other interesting thing is that this game the player base has been separated and separated and separated. Now the people who really enjoy Classic for the leveling experience and want to spend time in it, they're probably playing hardcore on the OnlyFang server, etc. Right? Like they're just enjoying their own time in their own space. The people who are playing on Anniversary are the people who care about the competitive nature on a nothing server, on a nothing game. That's the 15th release of it. You know what I mean? So we are petty people who are still playing on the Anniversary server for the most part, and that is just the player base that we've got here. So it's just another interesting separation that has just made Anniversary is the Coddy's cordial concentrate of people who care about pointless pixels in a pointless game.
Yeah, which is why they're the prime audience to basically buy the black tar heroin that is being asked of them right now. But look, Justin, sit tight for a minute or two. All right, I'll get to you in a second. Just be quiet until then. Just to put a bow on this one, DC Green, it seems like from what you're saying that there would, like, I know you're not playing Anniversary, but if I were to say the same situation, if it were to apply to you on your beloved SoD servers, if I know the economy is great in SoD, but if hypothetically the economy fucking blew up overnight, like the US economy is doing, and things became really, really, really expensive, it seems like you're saying.
Well, that is happening.
Yeah, I know. There is? Oh, okay. Anyway.
Yeah, with arcane crystals and with cured rugged hides and all the stuff that you need to make tier, like that stuff is like had multiplicative price increases over since Nax launch.
Okay.
I think prior to Nax coming out, arcane crystals were like 5 gold each, and they're now like regularly 50 gold each. Cured rugged hides, same thing. We're like under 10 gold, they're now like 60 gold.
Aren't there other ways to get those items so that they can't be controlled by Lotus as well, though? So it's not as big a deal, or am I wrong in that?
Nothing on SoD is as like exclusive as Black
Lotus will always be unique. Lotus will always be relatively unique. But DC Green, what I'm getting at is it seems like there is a financial line in the sand for you where, let's say you get to the point where it's, you know, oh, I have to farm 10 hours a week. I can't make that amount of money in my off time. I can't keep up with the what the game is asking me of me anymore. And then you get to the point where you're buying gold, but then the gold price or the price goes up so high even further that you're like, well, now I can't farm the gold. And now I'm not comfortable spending that amount of money per week buying the gold.
How come we've skipped over like talking to the people in your guild that don't have this problem and seeing if they'll give you like assistance, or letting them like, oh man, sell me a Black Lotus this week for 200 gold and I'll give you another one next week for 300 gold, or whatever. Like, I just like, I hate this like learned helplessness that like always gets dragged into these conversations where people are like, oh, but I have to buy gold. It's like, dude, you play in a game with fucking thousands of people. Like, make friends and have them help you like solve these situations. Talk to somebody that doesn't have the same problems as you and figure out what they're doing so that you can do it also. Like, I just,
yeah,
that's
look,
like what sets me off in these conversations, is that like we only look at it this like binary, like I either can get it in a brain dead amount of effort or I have to buy gold to get it. And it's like, dude, there's a massive chasm between those two endpoints that nobody talks about.
You're right. You are
I just
right.
have like
You're
a hard
right.
time like engaging with these conversations, because it's like you skip from A to Z every time, and it's like, dude, there's 24 letters that like
No, you're right, but I'm working on the presumption that the price has effectively ruled all that practicality out.
I guess quit the
it
game.
hasn't,
Like, I
though.
don't know.
It
You're
is-
like, well, what happens if you get to your breaking point? It's like, I guess I'll just
fucking
kill
A, man.
myself, man. I don't know.
That-
I don't know,
Yeah.
because I haven't been there. But like,
Dude,
you know, I'm
Lotus is the
trying
only
to,
It's all,
thing
no,
with
it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. But
Lotus
I'm
is
trying to be
completely ruled
optimistic.
out.
There's a solution here that like we're just avoiding, rather than like it has to be these binaries of like you can easily or you can't, and you have to.
No, and you're
I'm trying to, like,
you're
look for
right.
the
You're
silver
right.
lining.
You're right to push people to, like, it's not even thinking outside the box. It's thinking literally within the box that the game designed for you. Like, there are ways to make money if your back is against the wall. You know, much like in real life, find a fucking way to make it work. If you want this item, make the money, make it happen. I agree with you in that regard. I know I'm pushing your patience by not letting this go, and it's not. When I say
No, you're fine. I mean, I'm just being animated.
No, it's all good. My ultimate point that I'm trying to sort of wrap this conversation up with is that I feel it sucks that for all the different external factors that have come into this, lazy players, yes, are being pushed to, well, here's the thing. Good faith players and bad faith players are being pushed to buy gold because of the price of the item. And I think that's very unfortunate. And all I'm getting at is when you get to a point where you're like, I'm really not comfortable spending $40 a week on gold to raid, that's when you can now confidently say, okay, I probably don't need a Black Lotus anymore to raid. But I'm just wondering if that line of thought exists in most raiders' brains.
Could I just quickly just jump in here briefly? This whole conversation is based on the idea that there are people who are really complaining about Lotus and are being forced to do all these things. And you mentioned at the start that you wanted to get this guy on who was making a really funny post about Lotus on Night Slayer. Are there people, a huge amount of people legitimately saying it's a massive problem, or was that just the funny post?
No. The posts about it are clearly quite frequent. Like, people are rising up about this issue.
Yeah, because as DC Green was saying, is like jump runs. If we go back to jump runs, you make a friend with mining, and you do jump runs. You can get 4 to 6 arcane crystals an hour, probably. Or 3 to 6 arcane crystals an hour, just doing jump runs. And you could, in 2 hours, buy 1 or 2 Lotus if you're farming with the mate. It is possible. So there is a way to get your Lotus every week. But yeah, people don't want to play the game. People are going to buy gold anyway.
Here's what, like, my phone. Here's my phone. Arcos, are you there? What are you doing? Oh my god! You're eating your microphone. Step away from the microphone, my friend.
Oh my god! Sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
My computer crashed. I have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
Some setting probably changed.
No, you sound terrible. So speak quickly.
I just want to jump in on the discussion because I was away.
All right. Make it quick.
at it.
You,
If you can
sound
turn your gain
your
down or something.
Your microphone sounds like fucking ass. So say it quickly.
Is it any better now?
Not really.
Fuck.
Check and see if maybe your microphone changed.
Is it
You might-
okay?
like your web mic
So
or
is the
something.
microphone essential to?
Probably some settings changed. I'll mess around with the settings.
All right. Come back to us. Let me just read out what this guy wrote to me from Reddit real quick, because he's raised like sort of the last point I want to make about this whole fucking dragged out conversation, which you guys have been brilliant on. Thank you so much, Tito, DC, everyone. You've been really good on this one. He just said the following. This is from One Improvement, 3817 over on Reddit. He goes, my personal take on this whole kerfuffle about Black Lotus prices is that people are not entitled to cheap flasks. Raiding with flasks is meant for an elite player base of the game. And yes, more people are getting to that skill set now since it's a 20-year-old game. But if people don't want to farm for gold for a few hours to afford a flask, then they don't deserve them. Compare this to old school RuneScape. Getting to be invited to a raid as a noob takes probably 70 to 100 days of playtime for a first-time player for their stats and their gold farming and their game knowledge. In World of Warcraft, it's 7 to 10 days, and yet people are still complaining that it's too time-consuming. So I really subscribe to this theory, and this is, again, like my evil point that I've been trying to weave in with DC Green as he sort of feels himself being lawyered slightly, is that I have mentioned this on the show many times in the past, where I am still fond of the time where flasks actually were a luxury item like DC Green says they are. And that's where DC Green can disagree with me on this one. He thinks they are still deemed to be a luxury item.
You should say were perceived to be a luxury item.
Well, yeah, and that's fair. But either way, what I'm getting at is I enjoyed, and this is, a shout out to yesteryear, when only a slim percentage of raiders had their flasks, because it really truly was reserved for those who were willing to go above and beyond and put in the extra time to rise to the cream of the crop. Then, obviously, a lot changed in WoW over the years, where we basically decided that, no, that's bullshit. We all get this item, and then we're all on a fair and even playing ground, and we can compare our passes to each other, and this is just how the game works now. I don't know. I liked it better when, and I'm not vouching for, I think it's bad that gold buying is a thing, and they've done what they've done with the price. But the only thing that it has done is it's now sort of slowly creating a situation again where by pricing people out of the market via real money, the smart people who are like, mate, I'm not spending $40 of real money a week on raiding because I'm not a fucking idiot. It now creates a situation where only a smaller percentage of people are taking flasks into raids. And thus, yes, it sucks that they're buying their power, and that's bullshit. That shouldn't be the way it happens. But it is now creating a situation where the item is reserved for those willing to do more than others to get it. It just sucks that it's bullshit, that it's real money. But I don't know. I just like it when not everyone has the flask, but DC Green is a raider. He comes from a different mentality to me, where they're super duper fun to play with. They produce big numbers. Everyone should have one. It's kind of our right. Let's rock and roll and make it affordable for all. We're just from different mindsets, DC.
I don't.
Yeah, it's better. Just let DC
better.
go. Yeah, go DC.
I don't. Like, I appreciate the sentiment of, like, I do also hearken to those times where it's like this all wasn't so gamified, and that there was, like, intrigue in the different, like, but, like, we're just, like, past that point as a community. We've like, grown past that point and stuff like that. And, I like, as I was saying before, I think that, like, the Black Lotus is, like, a very unique example where, like, it seemingly third-party entities have come in and created, like, a monopoly around it, which that shouldn't be the case, right? Like, the market price of everything should be determined by players. And so that's why I'm saying, what I was saying before is that, like, Blizzard needs to do something to put that back into the hands of players, because otherwise, like, we can very clearly see what happens. And then again, like, the definition I'm using of luxury simply stems from the shared sentiment that, like, all this stuff can be done without consumables, which would therefore, by definition, make all consumables luxury. If we really want to get into the nuance of that, like a flask of the mongoose is more akin to like a Happy Meal, whereas like a flask is like a pearl necklace. Like I wouldn't debate
whoa, keep it
clearly...
clean on this podcast.
you know what I mean, or your Ferrari or whatever, like a true like luxury item that like only certain people, I think that there is like a distinction from that or to be said about that. But like earlier before when we were talking about like the fact that raids can be cleared without it, I then therefore think that de facto makes consumables considered a luxury, which is why I was arguing in that fashion.
All good. Fucking pearl necklaces. Here we go. Arcos,
I'm all for freeing the nipple or the Black Lotus in this case.
Okay,
right? Like,
okay.
I think that they need to do that because it's clearly like warping the, but whatever, man, fuck it. Like, let it go to shit and everyone should just come play SoD. Like, I don't know why you guys are stuck in these Anniversary Realms anyways. Like,
No, but
you're just like, oh, man, I'm playing the wrong game and everything's all expensive and I'm having a bad time. Yeah, because you're playing the wrong game. So get on SoD,
that's the beauty.
Stop whining, have a good time.
But that's the beauty of this conversation, motherfucker. We've got 10 guys in this room talking about this game that none of us fucking play.
Hey, I play it, but I'm not complaining.
Oh, sorry, Tito plays it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Tito's a baller. He's got 4.5k gold. He's doing his DM jump runs. He's got it on lock, man. All right,
and Icono plays too.
Okay, all right.
We're holding hands.
All right, Arcos, take us home. Finish this point, and then we're moving on. What did you want to say that you've been thinking about while on the toilet listening?
Yeah, I mean, I missed a portion of the chat, right, because my PC decided to crash. But from my perspective, the consumable like debate or the debacle or however you want to view it is very hinged on the way that you want to play, and the type of gameplay that we've seen that people want from like pre-2019 and then post-2019 is that they want a lot to follow the people who are ahead of them. So they'll kind of chase what the top are doing, right? The top will use whatever consume is available to them. Doesn't matter how expensive or hard to get it is. They'll always go for it. Like boggling routes, for example.
Yeah.
All right.
One boggling route on Season of Discovery is like 30, 35 gold. Lasts for 10 minutes. It's farmable on Alliance only.
It gives you one.
We'll use it. But it's plus 1 attack damage. Like it's so minuscule, but people still pay for it. People still use it. The average person doesn't, of course. There's a limit. But when you're talking about the flasks, like in 1920, I remember at first the flasks were so expensive, very few people used them. But if you are playing in the top, it's expected that you do. And if you can't reliably farm the amount of gold required to meet that expectation, you will buy it, right? So if buying gold is available, people will do it. Doesn't matter if it's for TDKPs or if it's for consumes or if it's for fucking clout or flare or epic mounts on alts, doesn't matter. Like if it is available to you, there will be people who use it in some way or fashion, right? We saw a TDKP ban for the first time in Season of Discovery. I personally did not see a change in the amount of gold being bought, sold, and used around me. That of course is very unique to my situation, perhaps. So other people might have seen it completely disappear from the people they play with. But I know people who are platinum and diamond on G2G. To be platinum, you need to spend $10,000 on the website. Like, wow. I think people are spending way more money on gold than anyone realizes. Yeah. And I think they're using that gold for silly things rather than just a TTKP here.
Well, these are all your mates that are friends with the Saudis. Right?
No. Like I wouldn't say that many people who I've played with over the past years would really flaunt their their gold buying. There have been some over the years who have like didn't really care or whatever. They just flaunted it, right? But I think it's just it's a funny argument when people before said that like the biggest driver of gold buying was GDKPs, etc. And I agree that GDKP, of course, is a huge driver for gold buying specifically, but it's not the cause.
I think that's a slight twist.
Back in 2004, people bought gold in 2004, 5, 6. Like people have been buying gold since the dawn of time, right?
I'll just say, wait. Let me jump in.
There.
Let me jump in. I feel like there's been a lot of twisting. And I'm not saying you want GDKPs brought back, but you probably do. But there's been a lot of twisting from the pro GDKP crowd over the last few months that I've noticed, that every time it comes up, they say things like you've just said, where like everyone was saying that GDKP was the biggest mover of like gold buying. And it's like, no. That was never the argument. The argument was that GDKP promoted gold buying. Like that was the question. Does GDK promote gold buying? Yes or no? It's a one way or the other argument.
Isn't that the same though? Like
no, it's not the same.
Driving gold buying and being the reason people buy gold, like isn't that the same thing?
Do people buy gold to go to?
A lot of people bought gold to use in GDKPs.
Yes.
A lot of people did, and insane sums of gold, bought gold, were like exchanged hands for the specific purpose of being used.
Yeah, but now people are saying, "Oh,
I think a lot of
you guys said
that as the argument."
No. But yeah, you guys are saying like, "Oh, you guys said that like we only bought gold because of GDKP." Nobody fucking said that.
I mean, I think a lot of people did, but I think people also just said that GDKPs being available is a big driver for people to begin buying gold or to keep buying gold or to buy bigger sums of gold, like whatever.
It won't be today.
I think the anti-GDKP people expected gold buying to go down more than it has. I think they expected the in-game market to be less inflated because GDKPs were removed. Because from my perspective, the in-game market has only inflated more since the GDKP ban was put in place. Because people went from farming gold or buying gold to use on buying items to needing that profit margin from selling things on the auction house. So the inflation just skyrockets from there. You just move the goalpost of where do I need to buy gold to use. It went from being to buy the item itself to buying something else, right?
Let's call it. Hang on. Let me jump in.
Say, like, my point on the consume shit was this: that like there's a portion of the player base that will use whatever is the best thing available regarding consumes. If that requires them to buy gold, they will. If it's not really harshly punished, and a lot of other people will just blindly follow what those people do.
Got it. Let me jump into this point.
People will check the top houses and they will just
we know. Let me jump into this point. The only reason I'm shutting you down is because let's just call that a mini preview of an episode I want to do sometime in the near future, Arcos, where I do want to have the big grand old discussion of the review of the GDKP ban and talk about whether or not there is any discernible data, or even though we'll never get the data, but the vibe or whatever, whether or not the GDKP ban worked and what it did to gold buying and how players reacted and how we moved our finances around surrounding that ban. I will confidently say this, and I don't think I've ever said this on the show before. I genuinely don't feel I'm smart enough to have that conversation. I'll host the conversation, but I don't back myself to really be able to confidently weigh in on whether or not the GDKP ban worked. But I would thoroughly invite you guys, if you're listening to this episode and you want to be part of that conversation and you're an economics guy and you're a wow money guy, please hit me up, because I'd love to host a for and against whether or not the ban worked. I just personally, I can tell it's going to go over my head a little bit.
I think it worked, and I could explain why.
All right. Well,
I think
let's hold it.
Have a good time discussing that.
Yeah. Well, you guys, you DC Green and Zoran, recruit some little acolytes, and we'll get a big group going, and we'll do like a 3-hour chat on that sometime soon.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah,
I'm
cool.
going to sign off now.
All right, you go to bed, mate.
Thanks
we'll talk to you
a lot
later.
for the chat.
No,
And have
all
a
good.
Rest of the show.
Thank you,
See you,
mate.
man. Good to hear your voice.
On that
Cheers.
note, we're
Good
gonna.
night.
Good night, mate.
Night, Arcos.
On that note, we're going to wind up the WoW portion of the podcast. We're about 3.5 hours in. I want to do a bit of IRL chat, if that's okay with you guys, because my nephew's just joined the chat and he was with me on this trip to the US that I just got back from.